I'm out of the loop. I've been gone for far too long, and I really, really need to catch up. What is my audio doing? Good evening, barflies. Welcome to the Whiskey Geek channel. A lot of you are going to be familiar faces, familiar names, but for any of you who aren't, Good evening, barflies. Nightmare. Welcome to the Whiskey Geek channel. Apologies. A lot of you are going to be familiar names, but for those of you who aren't, I'm Ben, and welcome to my channel. An extra special warm welcome to you. So it's been amazing to see that from an hour or so early, there's been people in chat, people ready to go. Roy has reassured me that it doesn't matter how well or poorly I do, how much I fudge my audio, you guys are going to be here and have fun anyway. So saying hi to a few. Chat has gone fast already. Mark Slinger, good to see you in. And Daniel Vermas, thank you very much for your good luck early on, much needed. Whiskey friend, how you doing, Alan? It's great to see you. Pete Head, Jimmy Jazz, so many of you guys that I'm out of touch with. Whiskey Shared, hi Toby, how you doing? So, the OSWAs. What an exciting initiative to come back to. I've never really myself put that much stock into whiskey awards, into the swathes of awards that you see popping around and tacked onto whiskies and releases. But as with a lot of things in the whiskey community, we're all driving for authenticity, for transparency. And we have to remember that we're in the minority. As whiskey consumers, we are very much a fringe segment. We are outnumbered by the masses, outnumbered a long way. Outnumbered by those who are yet to catch the whiskey bug, quite like we have. So if we want to see a change in the industry, if we want to push our agenda, we have a responsibility to be a loud minority. We have a responsibility to push our agenda and to educate tactfully, delicately, so that we can see more of the authenticity and see more of the integrity that we want becoming the norm. So enter the online Scotch Whisky Awards, independently hosted, community funded awards. The OSWAs are a fantastic opportunity for us as a community to be loud, for us to push our agenda and to try and steer things. If ever there was an opportunity for us to celebrate the whiskies that we love and we engage with, this is it. But I have a real bone to pick. So many of the whiskies that I love, so many of the distilleries that I love aren't even mentioned. And many of those whiskies which are nominated, I've never even tried. So it's absolutely time for me to catch up and time for me to put that straight. Tonight, I've been given the opportunity to host the vPub to try and lighten the load for Roy a little bit, to give him chance to make the OSWAs everything they can be. And I'm wanting to take this opportunity to discuss those distilleries, the whiskies that have been missed, the whiskies that have been overlooked, the whiskies that were almost but not quite, and the forgotten malts. So, as this is very much a community initiative, community driven, I'm wanting to bring in channels to help out. Hi Luna, how you doing? Sorry, I'm catching up with chat. It's jumping way faster than I'm used to. I don't think I've ever had a live go up to 60 or over. So the first category, let's see if I can bring this in. Flip you around. The first category is best entry-level single malts. There is one whiskey here which I haven't even tried, and another whiskey that I've only briefly tried once up in Edinburgh. It was part of a flight, so I didn't really get a fair chance to assess it. That is the Glencadam. I am going to pull in Shayla from Whiskey Central to discuss this category. How are you doing, Shayla?
Hey, Ben, how are you?
Are you muted?
Oh, shit. Can you hear me all right? You might have muted me. I don't know.
Nope. Uh-oh. Oh, no, I'm an idiot. Everyone else can hear you.
Oh, okay. Oh, you need headphones. It happens to the best of us.
All the things that I should have tested before we went live.
All good, all good. Well, hey, hello, everybody. I know you guys can hear me. Ben's just waiting. I've done it before, too. It's a bummer.
You say something now?
I can say something. Can you hear me?
I really, really hope so.
You may have needed to use wired headphones. I'm not sure, but hope you're all doing very well tonight. Hey, Ben, can you hear me now?
I can. I am super sorry.
Oh, no worries. Do you know how many times I have forgotten to plug in my headphones on a stream? A lot. No worries. All good, all good. Oh, he still may not be able to hear me. I don't know.
This is actually a nightmare. I'm hearing everything on repeat, looping again and again.
Oh dear.
Thank you, Aquavite. Thank you for your super chat. So, if we take a look at the whiskies that came up in the best entry-level single malts, what have we got here? I was a little surprised at what came up, to be honest.
Yeah, I think most of these are pretty good options. I was a little bit surprised with Highland Park 12. That was kind of my shocker out of these, but
yeah, the Highland Park 12. Well, I think what was most interesting to me, perhaps, was a difference in opinion, a difference in definition of what entry level is. So when I first thought or saw that best entry level single malt was a category, my first thought was things like Highland Park. I was thinking things along the line of introductory whiskies or financially accessible whiskies. So in the past, I have used whiskies like Highland Park 12 and the Tomatin Legacy. It's called something weird in the States, isn't it? Beginning with a D.
Yeah.
Glengoyne 12, maybe. These are the kind of whiskies that I have used as introductory whiskies for beginners. And then I see things like Ardbeg. I would not think at any point to whip out Ardbeg as an introductory whiskey, as an entry-level whiskey. And it's also fairly expensive, I thought. So my point of view, my opinion was more along the lines of the Highland Park.
Yeah, so I think maybe there's a difference between entry level and like beginner whiskey. There was a price bracket on this one, or a general price bracket, and so I actually nominated Glenmore and Gila Santa because I was trying to fit within that price bracket. And these ones are just a little bit outside of the price bracket, but yeah, I think maybe the difference between beginner and entry level is kind of the thing. And I think these awards are kind of they're made for us whiskey enthusiasts and nerds, maybe not necessarily for beginners. So, most of these are 46% non-colored, non-chill filtered, and I think that's kind of what the awards are trying to celebrate. And a lot of maybe beginner whiskeys aren't necessarily, they don't maybe fit in those categories. So, but yeah, I think those are great options as well. If you had maybe, slight definition kind of things where it's like, is this a beginner one or is this an entry level for a whiskey enthusiast? It's kind of a little bit different, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So, taking this opportunity to crack open my bottle of the Arran 10.
Oh, there you go.
You have summarized it very nicely, as particularly when we were talking about what we were going to discuss tonight, and you pinged through your comment about the Highland Park 12. I started to think, well, hang on a second. This is the online Scotch Whisky Awards. This is our community's awards.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this is our entry-level single malt.
Right.
So
right.
it's not what I would choose as a generic entry-level single malt. It's not what I choose to give to someone who doesn't like whiskey.
Yeah.
This is entry-level almost to our community.
Yeah.
And so there's this they're almost epiphany whiskies, the likes of Bunnahabhain 12. How many people have been captivated by the Bunnahabhain 12 and gone, hang on a second, there's something a little bit magical about this.
Yeah, yes.
And it's been their segue into really appreciating single malt whiskies.
Yeah.
And the same with the Ardbeg 10. I myself had a really strong epiphany moment in one of Roy's vPubs. I was sat there and it caught me off guard. I knew Ardbeg 10. I was halfway through the bottle, and suddenly, hang on a second, there's this layer of citrus-soaked oak and all these wonderful extra flavors, and the peat just kind of took a backseat for a second, and everything else erupted, and it was just a beautiful moment. So, on that realization, I thought it was beautifully fitting that the first category of the first OSWAs, the nominees all seem to be entries to our community. They seem to be whiskies that have a hook, something that will catch people and pull them into almost our appreciation of whiskey, into where we're at collectively.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And it's just, I don't know, it's so cool because I think I've had a lot of those moments with a lot of these, whiskeys. Like I've had Ardbeg 10, I've had Bunnahabhain, I've had almost all of these except for the Arran 10. I've had a 14-year-old version of it, but I haven't actually had the standard 10. But yeah, they all have kind of these little moments in our kind of journey as, as whiskey enthusiasts. So it was cool to see Highland Park on there. I think it might be a little bit... It might not fit the category perfectly, but it was one of the whiskeys that I had early on in the journey that was kind of like, oh, this is a little bit different, and got me kind of, the ball rolling, so to speak, with just kind of more enthusiasm for the category. So
I actually quite like this whiskey. I know it's not as exciting as a lot of the whiskies that we are drawn to.
Yeah.
But you can pick it up cheap here. It's normally around for 24, 25 quid.
And mine is 40%, which is, it makes me sad. Yeah. I think yours is 43 maybe?
No, I think 43 might be the States.
Oh, okay,
I don't know why, but over here in the UK, 40% again.
Oh, okay.
So when I whipped this out as a talking point, I noticed up here, it had won gold. It won one of the many awards in 2020, and that did make me chuckle.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm interested to see. I do not know who is going to win. This is a pretty stacked, I would call it a division, but it's like all of these could win, and it would make sense, but I'm really excited for the awards to actually see what happens. But
yeah. So Mr. Super Chat, David Hong, thank you very much for your generous super chat. And Ebhead, great to see you in. Macallan Fine and Rare has shared his insight, as he frequently does. And it is a good way of thinking. Entry level simply means the starting point to a range of a producer. But Ardbeg 10, surely that means you should be looking at Wee Beastie, not the 10-year-old? Bunner, are you not looking at this to Radar? Or are we talking it only really counts if it's an age statement? Not sure.
Yeah.
Hi, Ebhead, as well. Good to see you in.
I think kind of, when you think of, Wee BC is a little bit new, so I think when you think of Ardbeg as like their standard core release, you probably would imagine Ardbeg 10 for at least the time being until Wee BC kind of gets its footing. I still feel like that's pretty new. I don't know.
Yeah, I've not tasted it yet. I've not tried it. I'm looking
forward
to
it. I haven't either.
The young peat as a hook is normally quite fun, so I'm looking forward to trying it. Beastie, Macallan's just sorry. Macallan's chimed in and said that the Beastie was €100.
Oh, geez.
I think it was 10 quid less than the Ardbeg 10 for me over here.
Yeah, I thought it was around the same price as the Ardbeg 10, like $10-ish kind of difference between them, but that's a lot. 100 euros is a lot.
Yeah, definitely is. Whiskey Sheds pointed out this is something that I've noticed as well over here. Since they released the Highland Park 10, the Highland Park 12's disappeared from supermarket shelves, and so I may no longer be able to pick it up for 24, 25 quid. And the Highland Park 10, maybe because it's a new release, a newer thing on the shelves, I haven't seen it for as cheap as the 12 used to be, which is a little disappointing.
So I wonder
again.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Because it's a new release, and because it's a change from a whiskey that I was a fan of, I've been drawn to try it even at a silly price point. I haven't bought it yet because I kind of object to what they're doing, but the temptation has definitely been there.
Yeah. Okay, so you have Arran 10. I just poured a little Arran Macklemore because I don't have the 10. So.
Okay. So this is my first time ever with the 10-year-old. Like you, I've had the 14-year-old. I think it's sat on my shelf somewhere over here. That's an old bottling of the 14. But there's this lovely floral element, which it is quite spirit forward. You can tell there are some decent casks in there which are adding complexity to it. But I'm actually really appreciating that there's a lot of Arran spirit character in this.
Yeah, I get that floral thing on this as well. Obviously, this is, quite different, but I still get that character.
And the malt is showing quite nicely. It's a little green, which with these kind of grassy, meadowy, floral type tones, it tends to bring that out of the malt. It plays quite nice with those natural elements.
Yeah, green is a really good way to describe this, I think.
And there's something, I think it was in Kalila when I visited the distillery, they had one of these tasting boxes, and not tasting, nosing boxes, and there was a scent in there which master distillers apparently use as an identifier. I think it was called ethereal.
Oh, okay.
But I couldn't describe to anyone, so I don't use it as a descriptor because I couldn't tell anyone what it actually means.
Right. I couldn't. I can't picture what that would smell like, but
it's kind of light, a touch sweet, a touch solventy. It's like this culmination of a bunch of different little things.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
I'm getting it a little bit in this.
Yeah. When you say, like kind of a between sweet and solventy kind of mixed together a little bit, I kind of smell that for sure. New tasting note for everybody.
It's quite light on the palate, refreshing, and then it develops quite suddenly. There's a nice wave. Could just be that I haven't had any whiskey in a few days because I've been feeling ill.
Yeah.
But there's this nice wave of raisin in particular, quite sweet tones, and citrus and woodiness. But what I'm really appreciating about this, several of the whiskies that I've reviewed recently, they tended to tail off on the finish. They tended to tail off and go a bit flat on dull on the finish. But this really isn't. It's still lingering now, and it's wholesome. I can appreciate, even as a neck pour, it's not done any breathing. It's not opened up at all. I can appreciate what people are getting from this and why they're enjoying this one.
Yeah, I loved the Arran 14. I had it in a blind, and I really enjoyed it. I can't remember what it ranked in the blind, but it was up against other really wonderful things. So, I think it definitely deserves a spot in this section for sure. And I think it's nominated again in the 8th category. So kind of cool that it's nominated for at least 2. That's a pretty good showing.
Yeah. People must really be enjoying it for it to rock up in the last category as well.
Yeah.
So, are you opposed to sharing what you voted here?
Oh no, not at all. So the thing is, I literally do not remember what I voted for. So I was on vacation, and I was like, "Oh, let me just get this done, and then I'll go back and just double check." And no, didn't do that. I was on vacation, and I think I voted for Deanston 12 because I love Deanston 12. But I may have voted for Bunnahabhain. It was probably one of those two. I haven't had the Arran. I didn't think Ardbeg I didn't want to vote for Ardbeg for this section. It just, you know, I don't know. It didn't seem to. It fits in a sense, but just not for me personally. And then I hadn't tried the Glencadam 10 at that point. I have since then. And then again, kind of my thoughts on Highland Park, maybe just a tiny bit out of place in this one. So yeah, it was either Bunnahabhain or Deanston. I'm pretty sure I voted for Deanston.
I'm fairly certain, and just before it slips off my screen, thank you very much, Luna Arran, for your generous super chat as well. I'm glad that you are enjoying yourself, even though I can't manage audio, apparently. I'm pretty sure that I voted for the Bunnahabhain 12. But if we had this conversation and I'd kind of had that appreciation of what this was actually about before I did my vote, based solely on that epiphany moment that I had with the Ardbeg, it probably would have pinched it.
Yeah,
which is kind of amusing, given that when I saw that come up, I was like, not a chance. Can't vote for that one. That's crazy. But
yeah.
That was my own naivety more than anything else.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I think it's just a little difference of opinion on what maybe entry level means. But yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Entry level means to us in particular.
Right.
So, what did you think of Glencadam when you tried it?
I liked it. I just had a little pour off the very beginning, so I'm going to reserve total judgment until I've had quite a few more drams and gotten to know it better. But it was really dry for me, not in a bad way. I just, I've had other ones like Deanston 12 that are a lot sweeter than Glencadam 10. So I was kind of expecting it to be in that same sort of vein, and it just wasn't. So I do really like it. I think it's kind of like a crisp, clean, fresh, like summery dram. But I like sweeter drams, I think. So we'll see how it changes down the bottle and if I end up liking it more. It was also the only dram that I had in like a month, so I need to kind of get my palate back into it. But it was good. Also, Roy has the power of doing a really good job at hyping things up, and so I got so friggin' excited to try this, and I was like, this is going to be the best thing that I've ever tasted in my entire life. And then it was like, this is a 10-year-old whiskey. Don't have these expectations. So yeah. I think I put my expectations a little bit too high. That being said, I think it's a wonderful whiskey.
Yeah, I think in a lot of my reviews, even when I get quite excited about a whiskey, I feel hesitant to show my excitement, just in case you hype it up to the point where the whiskey can't live up to the expectation you set.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very much Roy is a great evangelist, and so when he starts talking about these, you get excited and end up buying them. That's my problem.
Sure.
I always sit in a vPub and I build a little shopping cart, and I'm like, this is getting expensive. But on that note of going for sweeter, the Glencadam 13, I remember it as being quite a nice progression that brings in some more of the sweeter elements, less of the dry. So that could be one to.
There was another, the Glencadam 15. I think people also were saying that they liked it a lot more. They're just probably a little bit more vanilla and kind of those sorts of things extracted. So I'm excited to try that one for sure.
Cool.
I know.
True words have never been spoken.
Yes.
Right. So I think we are ready to move on to category number 2.
Sure.
For category number 2, because we started talking before we went live, I am going to keep you in as I bring the whiskey novice in. Jim, how are you doing, buddy?
Good evening, all.
Hey, Jim.
How are we?
Doing well.
Good.
So,
Ben, can you still hear me? Yes?
I can, yes. I figured out it was a very, very amateurish mistake. I figured out what it was, and it's all fixed. I was having a little meltdown. I told you I'd have a meltdown about something.
Audio is definitely the challenge for all of us at the moment, it would appear.
Yeah. Roy's been doing this for 3 years, and he still has issues, so don't worry.
But when he has issues, he styles it out a hell of a lot better than I do.
Nobody has as much style as Roy, so don't worry.
So, for category number 2, we're looking at best blended scotches or blended malts. And we've got a lot of compass box in there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the blends are, we were discussing prior to going live, blends are a category that I am unfortunately a bit stuck up about. And it's wrong of me to be, because every single time that they come up in a blind, they seem to do really well. And so it's my own prejudice. It's always, if I'm spending my own money, I steer towards single malts because I've got a long list of distilleries that I want to explore, and there's some excitement about exploring the character of a specific distillery.
Yeah.
So I don't have many, and haven't tried many of the blends. Most of the ones that I do have are things like Johnny Walker's green labels, and I've been given samples of several compass box whiskies, but very, very rarely have I actually seen them in stores, which is a shame. I think from the samples I've tried, it seems to be a shame.
Oh yeah.
So Jim, I know you have opinions on blends. There was something that you wanted to get off your chest.
Well, it's more just that. Yeah, it seems like a Johnny Walker moment, so I thought we'd give the green label. Johnny Walker green label, although now as a blended malt, and I suppose most of these I think are blended malts, and it wasn't more getting anything off my chest. I would just love to see blends trying to come back into favour to almost win people like yourself over, Ben, for the simple fact that there are those out there who are capable of doing good things with blends. Loch Lomond actually proved themselves recently with, yet again, unavailable here, the Sassenach. What does he call your man? Sam Hewen put his name and face to the Sassenach and all that, but it's still a blended whiskey, blended grain, or blended with grain, 46%. And I was lucky enough to actually try it in Loch Lomond distillery itself, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then they put out the Jack and Victor Still Game whiskey recently, which is another blended Scotch, 40%, yes, but it's got grip, it's got flavour, it works. It's too expensive, but I think it's just about time that the Dewars and the Bells and the White and Mackays of this world started to maybe up their game a bit, but keep their prices down and start to aim at us rather than just continuing to peddle out cheap stuff.
Well, are you of the opinion that if they started to aim at us, they would actually be ostracizing their current consumer base?
No, I think they could still. There's nothing to stop them continuing. I mean, everybody has their entry level, as you were saying earlier, so they would continue to peddle the cheap stuff, but there's nothing to stop them. I think the Edrington Group did a great thing with the Naked Grouse, for example. I thought it was still a cheap blended malt. It was still a very affordable blended malt. I thought it had depth, it had breadth. It wasn't a bad blend at all. So I think the reason why I'm saying this is whenever this category came out, I was astounded by the amount of compass box in there. I had a feeling that was probably the way it was going to go. And Douglas Lang, and as Sheila said before we went on, had it been the other way around, it would have been the same thing. It would either have been full of compass box or Douglas Lang. It was one or the other. And it's sad that these older names are sort of just missing to us now, or don't, just don't matter to us anymore, really,
Yeah, I guess I think a lot of those whiskies, if they were, a lot of those blends, if they were to ditch the colouring, ditch the chill filtering, or at least reduce the extent of the chill filtering, you would only get more engagement. It's not going to push anyone away. I can totally understand a 40% whiskey, a 40% spirit has its place. There are people who don't drink spirits who haven't got the palate for it, and they hit that alcohol burn and it puts them off. That's fair enough. And it's not common knowledge to add a couple of drops of water to bring it down yourself. But if you were to ditch the chill filtration and ditch the colouring, it's not going to cost you anything. Particularly, most of these bottles come in dark bottles, and you can't even see the colour of the whiskey on the shelf anyway. A lot of them, I've noticed. So I'm of the opinion it would only enrich and bring more consumers like us to them rather than push them away.
That's a prime example there, which I was actually glad to see made it through.
Yeah.
Bottled at 50%. I mean, it's got enough Bunnahabhain in it to give it depth and breadth and grip. And there's no, yet again, it's something like £24 or something like that there a bottle. It's...
Yeah.
I've never come across that. I don't think I've ever even seen it on an online retailer, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just picking up a couple of comments. Sorry, go for it.
It's worth looking for. It genuinely is. Just to give it a shot. If you see it about and you can get it, I think somebody said there, £22 a bottle. So, it's even cheaper still.
Not bad. I'm taking this opportunity to crack open another bottle. This is the only Compass box. Where am I? The only Compass box that I own. Glasgow blend. So I'm going to pop that one open. As Menno Multi-Mission has pointed out, I don't even think that the green label from Johnny Walker is the best Johnny Walker. I know lots of people like it and they tend to catch on to it because of that island character. But for me, I remember the gold label as being a touch better. That engaged me more than the green.
Yeah. I think for the price, though, green label is pretty good. I think this is a pretty impressive showing from Compass Box. I was very surprised. So my nomination was actually for Scallywag, and it got through. But I was really surprised that there wasn't more Douglas Lane. And kind of like Jim was saying, depending on who voted, maybe they have more Compass Box available to them than they do Douglas Lane. So that might be why there's not as many nominations there. But I think it is great that Cutty Sark is here because it kind of shows all the other, I would love it if that would actually win because it kind of shows what you can do. So all these people that are putting out 40%ers, maybe they could try something like this, put out a, high ABV like Jim was saying, and we'll celebrate it. Clearly, it's on the nominations list. So I thought that was really good to see for sure. Although I haven't tried it.
It's actually not. I mean, the thing is, when you look at it, then I would nearly say it's not much to ask. I mean, I should have poured it instead because it doesn't look like as if there's a lot of color added to it. It's got that oily mouthfeel, as I say, bottled at 50%.
Yeah.
And whenever they can keep the price down, you said it there, Ben. It's actually not costing the distilleries anymore because you're not chill filtering. It's costing them less.
Arguably, it's cheaper for them to put out without the chill filtration. I mean, the cost on, as an design engineer, the cost on a piece of kit like that in itself, never mind the running costs, is fairly steep. It's a large investment. But yeah, I wasn't aware of it. I haven't seen it here, and it being 50% and largely Bunna. I'll pick it up at that price, I think. I'll give it a try.
I would too if I ever saw it.
I would definitely, as I say, I would like to think there's these distilleries, the likes now. Obviously, in Scotland, Loch Lomond are the only ones capable of making everything in house. The only ones with all the tools to make a blended Scotch in house. But Girvan Distillery's putting out enough grain, so there's enough grain whiskey in the world, obviously, for these to start. I mean, it's alchemy. A good blend is alchemy as best, so I'm surprised there aren't more of them trying to sort of bring it back. It's what we, let's face it, single malt really only became the big draw in our generation. Well into our generation, prior to that, it was all about the blends. So
Yeah.
Daniel Vermas ribbing me a little bit there. You look kind of blended tonight. It's the panic. The panic. I haven't had anything to drink before this, and haven't for a couple of days, I promise. So this Compass box is. I didn't even look at the bottle really before I pulled it out for tonight, and it's right there in the middle, bold, peaty, and sherried. I don't know why. I wasn't expecting to be peated, and straight away on the nose, it was a really nice surprise.
Oh, nice.
So, like we were saying, this is non-chill filtered, natural colour, but it's still not a steep ABV. But there is plenty to explore on the nose. It's plenty rich enough. Very enjoyable.
Is it 46?
43.
Oh, 43. Okay.
I think this is where Douglas Lang and Compass Box are getting the fans within the enthusiast community, is that it's the way they treat the whiskey. It's what they're doing. They're drawing from good collections that they've gathered over the years, and at the end of the day, the Langs and John Glazer, these guys knew what they were doing prior to it, so they're not just taking two good whiskies, jamming them together, and hoping for the best. There's a bit of work there.
Yeah. I've tried. So it was something I was toying about with and started to do just before I disappeared off the scene for a bit. I was blend away, doing a series on trying to find a way to enjoy the bottles that I wasn't really engaging with and make my own blends out of them. It was a very fun exercise, but it's tougher than you think. You can't just put, a bit of something great into something else and expect it to get better. It doesn't always gel right, and it quite frequently fragmented the experience rather than enriched it. And likewise, I've been given a couple of these kits. I think they're made by Chivas Regal, where they've got 5 different single malts, and you make your own little blend with them. And again, even though they are in themselves, they're fairly timid components. If you get the mix wrong, it really turns on you. It turns on you fast, and it doesn't gel well.
Yeah. I've done a similar experiment. I had my patrons vote. I was like, I'll just do a blend, stream. So I did a blind flight where I had a bunch of blends that they gave me, or they, kind of told me to make, like what they would choose the mix. And a lot of them were really flat. Like, I liked the whiskeys that were in them, and they just completely disappeared and were so flat. I was like, this is so much harder than you think.
It's genuinely confusing as well. It catches you off guard. You're like, why did that happen? What's gone on? I've heard a lot of people, every time that I've done it on a stream or anything, everyone seems to say, once you've done it, you've got to let it sit for at least like 48 hours. Because there's something that goes on, something with it actually homogenizing and becoming a whiskey, a blend, which doesn't happen straight away. And straight away, it just kind of gets swamped or something. And so you can't really tell what you've done if you try and assess it straight away.
I think we gave it like 4 or 5 days or something, because I just wanted to see if that would work. And it's crazy.
You generally hear either let it settle or blend it out. And it's one of those things that you think, yes, you can blend it out, but you get to the point where there's that much in there, you've forgotten where it all started. It's gone, forget about it.
Yeah. One thing which always did tend to work for me, if you put a decent drop of cask strength Port Charlotte in there, it ends up all right. It
tastes enough like it that you, this is okay.
So, of these whiskies, Douglas Lang, the Scallywag, and the Green Label are the only ones that I've really spent any time with. The Scallywag I actually really enjoyed. One thing that we touched on earlier, there's Douglas Lang almost seem a little bit too diluted. They have their core range of the Epicurean, the Scallywag, the Big Pete, I forgot what they call them, regional malts, where they've made blends, the constituent parts being from the specific regions. And they're not that easy to come by, but there always seems to be an iteration of them, like a Christmas version or a Halloween version or something that you can find. And because they're so fragmented and diluted, it's hard to really engage with the community on them. It's hard to share them in that way, but that doesn't really devalue them at all. It's just kind of, as a content creator, to a certain extent, it's tough to choose to do something like that, or like a single cask, where the vast majority of people are never going to get a chance to try it. But also engaging with this community, this online community. If you sit there and go, I'm excited about this whiskey, and everyone's like, I can't buy it. It's just it takes the wind out of your sails. But the Scallywag and the Big Pete, when I have tried them as their normal compositions, their normal expressions, I've thoroughly enjoyed them. Douglas Lang do know what they're doing with the blend. They don't just smother things in Port Charlotte and push it out there. They actually compose some pretty nice blends.
Yeah.
The Rock Oyster, it's the Rock Island now, but whenever it was the Rock Oyster cask strength, there was 2 releases of that, and it was the second release, the batch 2, was outstanding. It was one of my, and yet again, it was fleeting. You know, it came and went, and they never did. Whenever they changed the name to Rock Island, I don't think they've ever released another cask strength version of it. And I did actually get told off one night on an activated vPub by Mr. Lang himself when I called it Rock. Was they ever going to release a third batch of the Rock Oyster cask strength? And he says, "I think you'll find, young man, that's now Rock Island." and it's very strong. You know, you need to be careful with that stuff. And I was like, all right.
Yeah,
but it's all secondary market.
I can understand why they did the name change, because Rock Oyster, it's not gonna, if people don't know, it doesn't have the shelf presence, and the name is a little off-putting. You know, most people aren't fans of oysters or the thick brininess, so it puts people off. Whereas Rock Island is more appealing, I guess, to the masses.
Yeah.
I actually have, I think it's batch 2 tucked away somewhere.
That's awesome.
Of Rock Oyster.
Nice.
And the doc is just reminding me here that he still has some bottles of it tucked away for me. So nice. I have to make my way to Germany.
There you go.
So Luna Arran raising a good question, getting us back on topic. Thank you, Luna. So the purpose of blends doesn't have to be a diluted experience, not for the geeks anyhow. So how did you approach this category? For me, I have tried the Scallywag, I have tried the Johnny Walker Green Blend, and I've tried a sample of the Peat Monster, and not the others. So I couldn't really vouch for the others, even though I know that people love the Spice Tree and people love the Flaming Heart. So I think I may have abstained from this one. My opinion being, if I vote for something that I'm not fully educated on, then I'm just muddying the waters. So I don't think I actually voted on this. If I was from the ones that I have tried, I would have gone with the Scallywag.
Yeah, that was my nominee, so I was like, I have to vote for this. Other great nominees, but I was just like, I got to. But yeah, I liked the both of those Compass boxes I've had, and I've enjoyed both of them. I like Johnny Walker Green Label. I don't think it's the best out of this category. I think it could potentially be the weakest, at least for me personally, for my palate. But yeah, I ended up voting Scallywag. So
the only one of them I hadn't had was the Flaming Heart, and at £125, there's a slim chance I'll ever have it. Yeah. But I understand the draw of a Compass box, I really do. But it's literally just what we were discussing before we went on air.
Yeah,
the price and the accessibility of them in the UK just isn't the same as it is on your side of the pond, Shayla. So that's understandable. As you said, it goes the other way with Douglas Lang for you guys. Yeah. So, you know, so I would definitely swing still. I'm just going to be a champion for Cutty Sark there, because it's just one of those ones that always, from the first time I tried it, I think I tried it as a sample. And then I think I watched the Whiskey Tribe guys reviewing it, and they liked it as well. And it was just one of those things that I had to try it just for myself. And since that, there's so many people, I've heard them saying the same thing. They couldn't believe how good it was just for a cheap blend. Yeah. And I would still put, if I was going for another second, I would still go for the Johnny Walker Green. I still do like it as an affordable Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
Fair enough. This Compass box, the Glasgow blend, it's plenty of peat on the nose, and then on the palate, there's this really lovely sherry that suddenly, as it transitions to the finish, becomes all peat again.
Oh wow!
It's a weird little journey, but it's really nice. But one thing cool. that I don't think it's my prejudice against blends. One thing that is really coming out to me on this is it has no sharp edges. There's no kind of peaks or points of particular interest or definition to me. It's very, very pleasant beginning to end. But that almost seems like it's by intention, like they've tried to make this really smooth, flowing transition. Peat, cherry, peat. But it's not diminishing my enjoyment of it.
Yeah, I think I kind of had a similar experience with the compass boxes that I've had before. I enjoyed them. I actually did like a blended versus single malt kind of comparison. I tried to get ones that were similar, but the single malt version kind of thing. And I kind of noticed that too. Like, I really liked them, really enjoyed the flavors, but just at least for me, the single malts that I had with them just kind of grabbed my interest a little bit more and kind of had more to, I think, dissect. I don't know.
Which is something, it's a point of interest for me. And part of the reason that I love blind tastes is that I don't always get that when it's given to me blind. And we're all massively psychological beasts. The preconditioning is huge. So I'm sat here thinking, my brain just isn't firing correctly, and I need to be given this in secret at some point to go, oh wow, there's the magic.
Yeah, I did it blind too because I was trying to not be biased. So I love doing it blind because I think your mind can definitely play tricks on you a lot. So
you see, yet again, Charlie, I think was it Charlie McLean was asked the question what his favorite whiskey was, and he said it depends on when and where, and not knowing what
100%.
you're drinking.
Yeah. It could change day by day, I think, for sure.
Okay, we have just covered the second category and we're 45 minutes in, so we had best moved on.
No worries.
Easy.
Shayla, I'm going to drop you out for this one, and we'll pull you back in a bit later.
Okay.
Cheers. So, second category done. Third category, Best Grain Whiskey 2021. This is another segment that I am not all that experienced on. I'm not that well versed on, and so we're going to lean on Jim's input here to educate us.
Well, you see, I think there was a bit of a misunderstanding with this category, in that certainly myself, and if it was only me, then I would probably have said nothing. But I know that there's somebody else who was a contributor in the OSWAs who also didn't necessarily get because I think we just have this thing where we can't help but hear the word single before the word grain. So we just think grain, single grain whiskies, which narrows it down, narrows the field immensely.
Right.
This has nothing to do with Roy or Ralphie, because at the end of the day, it clearly states non-malt. So that opens the world up to a huge environment where every bourbon, every rye, all starts to fall under this one category.
And ultimately, there's more of those expressions than there are single malts.
Exactly. So it makes it a very, very hard category to pick from. And the other person who I know didn't understand this, because him and I chatted not about nominations or anything like that, just about categories and stuff like that at the start. And he said to me, he didn't actually vote in this category at all because he didn't know enough about. And I know now, the same as him, that he knows more about this category than most of us, because he reviews. So, and like even Graham Young here, is saying, it's so right, this is a misunderstood category, because those ryes and bourbons are, of course, grain whiskies. They're non-malt. So it already then makes this a totally different playing field. Yeah. Because, I mean, and even just to look at the category and look what's been put out there, like Wild Turkey, just to be nominated twice, are already winners. I would say, they've got to consider themselves, if they looked at it and thought, well, this is the enthusiasts that are talking. This is the whiskey community who's speaking here, and we've been nominated twice in this category. They'll be loving it.
Yeah, that's a success. And notably, they're not particularly expensive whiskies either.
Mm-mm. The 101 will always be in my cabinet. Always. And the rare breeds, another classic. But it's funny too that obviously we weren't alone in thinking this when Baines has got nominated in there. Still a great single grain. It is a great single grain whiskey. Teeling single grain I like as well. I haven't had the Balcones True Blue. I've had the Baby Blue, and the Hedonism, a blended grain there. But I think, as I say, I think it just threw a few of us off that we didn't know what we were actually pulling in, because bourbon, if I had thought for 1 second we're pulling in bourbon, all the bourbons, all the ryes, and I know Lot 40 rye was up there it could have been pulled in very easily, I would have been all over that like a rash, because to me Lot 40 rye is a great whiskey in its own right, but it's not in here anymore.
No. So I'm not sure that's the Balcones I've had. I've had a couple of expressions from Balcones, and they've always been fantastic. So I can understand why that's coming in. My favorite bourbon that I've ever had, I think, was Old Forester 1920. It was a higher ABV one.
Right.
But generally speaking, I don't really engage with bourbons. I've got a few up there on the shelf somewhere. But they're all on the lower end of the spectrum, because I was trying to find, kind of going for that granular experience, trying to find which producer is putting out a bourbon that I enjoy, so that I can then explore them more. So trying to hone in on something.
Well, you're not going far wrong. You're not even going far wrong there with Eagle Rare and Maker's Mark behind you, because, I mean, Eagle Rare is Buffalo Trace, isn't it? I think it's Buffalo Trace Distillery. So they're they're putting out so many great bourbons, but I know exactly what you're saying, and I sort of, I was going to say feel your pain, but it's a difficult thing with bourbon, because I think there's such a variety in even just Scotch single malt, but bourbons, there's just that thread that runs through them all, and it makes them very difficult to differentiate between them, I think.
Yeah. And I've got to be honest, one of the moments that I have most enjoyed any bourbon was in a social occasion in the sun with a piece of ice in it, which is more often than not a way I will never ever consume a whiskey. But it just worked outside in the sun.
Yep.
I can totally understand why in America it is so much more popular, because it really works. It suits the occasion.
My drink of choice, if I can't be bothered with just a straight whiskey or a beer or something like that, the first thing I'll do is reach for bourbon and Coke and loads of ice. And I just love that. And not Jack Daniels or anything like that. It still has to be a sort of half decent bourbon. When I say a half decent bourbon, I'm talking Maker's Mark or Eagle Rare or something like that. I'm just not a big fan of that gluey thing.
Yeah. Of these ones that I picked up, one of the things that I think I'm doing it with my brother on Saturday, going to try and record it. One of the things that I did was which one's best with Coke. And Maker's Mark was getting ribbed by so many people. It was constantly people like, no, it's trash. And I'm like,
right,
this is my favorite. I'm doing something wrong. This is my favorite.
So to be, because it's a wheated bourbon, it's just there's something sweeter or more vanilla. But sorry, we're getting off well off subject with that. But it's just I think definitely there was a misinterpretation of this category, and that was on our behalf. Certainly not on Roy and Ralphie's, because as I say, it's a dead state, not malt. But I think it nearly felt like it's just such a wide world of everything else there that this just couldn't be possible. It's too big a sandbox.
I probably had the same train of thought as a lot of the other contributors, to be honest. When I first read this, I was like, okay, what's the best one that comes to mind was a sample of a 40-year-old Carsbridge that I had. It was put out by Douglas Lang again. It was an extra all particular, and it was just fantastically creamy, vanilla syrup. It was magic. And I was like, well, there you go. That was a single grain. That was fantastic. That's what comes to mind. And then I'm like, well, hang on a second. This is everything that isn't single malt, really. This is the whole world that isn't what we fixate on, or what I fixate on personally. So, and looking at that, there's so many bargains to be had outside of Scotch. It's almost like there's too many to have, and it's overwhelming for me personally. Whereas I'm like, I can understand Scotch. I know these distilleries, so I'll just put myself in my little box and go, this is what I'm going to try. And it's just an easier life for me, I guess.
Yeah, true. And the thing is too, just like, I mean, even looking back at that list, beans, I can actually see it that beans and the likes of the compass box hedonism play. I mean, Scottish single grain and even Irish single grains tend to play in their own field anyway. That the Teeling single grain, and another one that I had actually tried to get in myself was the Method and Madness single grain from Middleton.
Okay.
And they almost feel like a good bourbon, but made obviously outside, because the cask influence is different. So that's where they're changing up. But to me, beans and the hedonism feel different. The Scottish single malt has a different feel to it, I think.
Yeah.
Or single grain, sorry.
Picking up a couple of comments there. Ben, Whiskey with Molly, he's pointing out with Coke it has to be rum, and I kind of agree, to be honest. I like rum and Coke. It's the way I normally if I'm going to have an easy cocktail, can't really call it a cocktail, an easy mixer, that's what I'll gravitate towards as well. And Menno pointing out that there's massive geographical differences across the states, and it's not really a fair comparison to just blanket everything under bourbon as what America has to offer.
You see, yeah, I agree, and I think this is why it felt a bit strange for all the, and I think whenever you know yourself as a contributor, whenever you started to see these Balcones and Wild Turkeys showing up, it felt a bit off to me. It just didn't. That to me straight away, I didn't think single grain. Then I just, but then it's like you said earlier with the entry levels. These are for us. This is the Scotch Whisky Awards, the online Scotch Whisky Awards. I think obviously this is more aimed toward the enthusiasts. It's for everybody, but it's more so for us. Am I wrong in saying that? Or
no, it's I guess it is steered by us, so it's a representation of us in a way. So yeah. Bill Monteith, how about a smoky cokey? Got to admit, I struggled with over here when we get Laphroaig 10, it's at 40%, and it's a fairly bland experience. I believe the States get it at 46%, is it? Which would be interesting. And I didn't really engage with the bottle, so a lot of it ended up in Coke.
And it works.
It works. It also works. It works really well over good vanilla ice cream. That's definitely worth trying. It's surprising. So this is another category that I abstained from, I think. The only ones that I could... My instant reaction was that of prejudice again. I was like, well, I know Balcones, that's my safe space. And Compass Box is probably also a safe space. And I'm like, why am I voting on something that I'm essentially ignorant to? And so I abstained.
You see, I would still tend to, because I've had enough of them, and especially whenever I realized that this was opened up to what it was opened up to. So I still would, I found it very hard to lean or steer away from Teeling single grain and beans, which to me are still single grains. So I'm taking out that. But if I open my mind to it, Wild Turkey 101, as I said, will always be in my cabinet. I think beans single grain will probably always be in my cabinet. I think it's a very good change up if you just fancy something. And beans is only £24 a bottle.
Well, even Wild Turkey 101 at £33 a bottle.
Yeah,
I feel like I need to pick up a bottle of that. Give it a try.
And anything bottled at 50.5%, you know, as I say, for £33, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Cool. So, shall we? Are you ready to move on?
Yes.
Got it off your chest? Cool.
Yes.
I'm going to swap you out for Shayla, if that's all right.
No worries, mate.
We'll head on to category number 4. Cheers, Jim.
Hey.
Hey, welcome back. So, category number 4, best distillery.
Yes.
Now, this, I believe, this is going to bring out a lot of, I'll call it fanboyism,
Yes.
fangirlism, whatever you want to. But there's one that sticks out to me here that I'm like, yep, that's my one. That's where, if I could, I think Roy asked the question, might have been the end of 2019, if you could have one distillery, if you could control one distillery, what would it be? And I was like, that one, without any hesitation, that one. So
which one would it be?
Bruichladdich,
Okay.
100%.
Yeah,
Bruichladdich.
that was what I voted for too.
There was this like crystallizing moment when I visited the distillery. We very almost didn't go when we went to Islay. We very almost didn't have time to do Bruichladdich. But Joe was like, "No, come on, you. It's another distillery. You're gonna love it." So I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." When I was walking around with the camera, and this guy rocked up to me with a copita with whiskey and just went, "Here, this is for you." I was like, "You're right." And it was a generous pour of a 26-year-old Bruichladdich, straight from the cask.
Wow.
And the thing that stood out to me most about it was this thick, oily, dense experience. It was agricultural, it was farmyard, it was everything that you'd want it to be, but it just stuck in your mouth. It like lined my mouth for the rest of the distillery, and I was like, "Oh, this is everything. This is what I want."
That's awesome.
And then I spent about 300 quid in their distillery shop. So
yep.
they
That's how
definitely
they
got their
get
money's worth out of that.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, as soon as I started researching Bruichladdich, I immediately became a super fangirl. So they're like one of my favorite distilleries. I actually voted for. People were really surprised that I put a distillery up instead of Bruichladdich as my nominee. So I actually put up Loch Lomond Group, so Glen Scotia and Loch Lomond together, because he said you were allowed to do that, kind of like a bundle, not just necessarily one distillery. So actually, I'm going to get some. By the way, I'm having some Elijah Craig barrel proof right now, and there are some really delicious, wonderful bourbons that you don't need to drink with Coke. It hurt my heart a little bit hearing that, but
you'll have to cover your ears in a later segment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on your recommendation, I'm going to open this Loch Lomond 12 and Roy's recommendation. To be honest,
I have a Loch Lomond 12 peated. I'll join you.
Nice. I think I've said it multiple times recently, but I've reached past Loch Lomond so many times. They are pretty easy to get hold of over here. They're frequently in supermarkets, and I've just kind of gone, nah. I don't know why. I buy whiskey. I buy a lot of whiskey. So why did I just ignore Loch Lomond? What have I got against them? And then Roy sent me a sample blind amongst a really nice selection of other whiskies. And I was like, this is my whiskey. I really like this one.
Yeah.
And turns out it was a cheap Loch Lomond. So I was like, you idiot, Ben. Go buy some Loch Lomond.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had quite a few samples of Loch Lomond and Glen Scotia, and I just love everything about them. But I not only love just the taste of their whiskeys, but also that you can just, like, get your nerd on. Like, I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but there's just a lot of things going on. Like, there's the Chardonnay yeast, the straight neck pot stills, the single grain that's not really a single grain. Like, there's so many nerdy things that you can talk about with them. And I feel like they're trying to kind of innovate, which I think should be celebrated. So that was who I voted for, just because I think all of these distilleries are absolutely wonderful, the 6 that we have. And they're doing great things, you know, non-coloring, non-chill filtering, putting out at high strength. But it's just really fun to talk about Loch Lomond. So I kind of wanted to celebrate that they're, I don't know, I feel like they're doing different things. Like, you know what I mean?
They absolutely are. They still, I mean, they have a Lomond still, don't they? Which is like a bridge between a pot still and a column still, and you can play with the setup. And as a geek, as an engineer, I was like, that's the kind of still that I'd like, because it'd just be like, I'd never make the same whiskey twice. I'd be like, well, what happens if I do this and this and this and this?
Yeah.
So I love, I think someone explained it to me as when they choose how to make a whiskey, they don't know how to bottle it, So they bring the Scotch Whisky Association down to say,
Right.
this is what I'm going to do. What can I put on the label? And so you've got bottles like that, a single grain that is also a single malt, but they can't call it. And you're just like, it says both on the box. What's going on?
Yeah.
Or it says it's a single grain, but it's made entirely from
100% malted
in one
barley.
distillery.
Yeah.
And you're like, so it's a single malt. Why have you labeled it like this?
Yeah. But yeah, because it's not distilled in a pot still, it can't be called a single malt. So it's like,
Right.
you learn these cool things just from going, what is this? I'm confused, and I think that happens a lot. There was quite a few times where I was like, oh wow, what about this? And it inspires you to research more and learn more about the distillery and how those things function. And I think maybe with these distilleries, I go, these are wonderful whiskeys, but they don't really necessarily make me dig deeper and like learn more about certain things. I don't know. So I do wish they were on the list, but Bruichladdich is a wonderful distillery. I voted for them. And I think this is a great panel of 6 distilleries that really represent what we want as enthusiasts.
Yeah. As Cresamere is pointing out, I seem to like Port Charlotte more than Bruichladdich. Didn't connect with it. I was kind of the same, to be honest. That 26-year-old single cask was amazing, and 100% I connected with that one more than any other Bruichladdich I've ever tried. But possibly some of those special releases, the Black Arts and those things that people get so excited about, if they weren't 300 quid a bottle, I'd engage with them in the same way. But they have these points of interest around the different barleys that they use and the different casks and the amount of geeky information they give you, which allows you to explore them in like a new means, in a new manner, that it does click with me.
Yeah.
And whilst things like I think they're hurting themselves with the Classic Laddie. The Classic Laddie was kind of their, we need to put a whiskey out because we need to start making money kind of thing for me. And it doesn't live up to what they can produce in my mind. It's a fairly pallid entry to what Bruichladdich can produce. But then because of their style of stills, they're very tall, and I think they've got a slightly inclined line arm, and they produce an interesting spirit which really takes well to peat. It carries through the peat in quite an interesting way. And so there's something magical about Port Charlotte. Even though they're using Highland peat rather than Islay peat to peat their malt, they've still got a great depth to them. And then they'll talk, frankly, too much length about how aging them next to the ocean brings all this sea spray and all that stuff to them, but there is still essence of Islay to it. There is still I don't know, I just really enjoy it, although I do like Port Charlotte more than I like Bruichladdich. But
I love Port Charlotte, don't get me wrong, but I actually do really like the Classic Laddie. I think it's I've had only Jim McEwen bottles, to be fair, so I haven't had any Adam Hannett, and I've heard that maybe those aren't as good because he kind of does it a different style. He's a different person. So, but the Jim McEwen bottles that I've had, I really, really enjoy. And I don't know, I think it's cool that maybe it was a marketing thing and he was like, I just need to put out a whiskey. But I think I am maybe naive in thinking this, but he was talking about kind of how it was his brainchild. Like, he wanted to show what Islay could be without it being peated. So I think it's kind of a neat way to show Islay character without having peat involved. I mean, I guess it's 10 parts per million or something. It says it's unpeated, but I like it personally.
It is unpeated, but they don't thoroughly clean the equipment in between a peated run and a non-peated run.
Yeah, I mean, you still get a little bit, but...
Yeah, it's tainted non-peat, if you like.
Right, yeah.
But I think I've had both the old and the newer Jim McEwen and Adam Hannett bottles, and I think I had them relatively close to each other, and there is some skepticism over them actually being worse with me. I think he's actually doing a pretty good job of continuing what was set up there.
Uh-huh.
There's differences, sure, but I wouldn't say there was that much more than any other distillery with batch discrepancies. It's, you know, they had to use different stocks, and because they are, you know, if you start chill filtering and you start non-age statement and you start colouring, and you can hide a bunch of the discrepancies, whereas it's an authentic whiskey. And so if you're going to honestly present it, you are bound to bring in expose more of these differences.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think Jim, from what I can tell, it seems like he uses more bourbon cask and Adam uses more wine cask. So, you know, probably depends on their stocks at the time and all of that. So it depends for sure. But
so, although we do have some fantastic whiskies nominated here, it's interesting to see that we've got two distilleries again, Bunnahabhain and Deanston. And I've got a bit of a gripe here. What's everyone got against Tobermory? Tobermory and Laphroaig. This for me, I mean, it's personal preference, but for me, as in the first category, it would possibly edge out the Deanston 12, and as kind of an introduction. And for me, I like Tobermory more than Deanston. Maybe it's because they offer some peated products as well. I don't know. I am a peat head.
Yes, I can tell.
But there's so many other distilleries that are unmentioned here. Also, Springbank. Springbank is, as soon as I saw that, I was like, well, yeah, that's going to get the popular vote, isn't it?
Yeah, I drew a little arrow because I have everything printed out, and I said, this is my vote, and then I next to Springbank I wrote, but this is going to win.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows? Who knows? I think there's obviously something to be celebrated at Springbank. Like, it's friggin' amazing, but it's not available to everybody. Not saying that availability means that it shouldn't be in the running, obviously, but yeah, I like Bruichladdich and it's widely available, but Springbank is obviously doing the freaking
Springbank has
delicious
gone,
stuff.
but it's gone absolutely mad recently. I mean, there's several Springbank groups and pages and stuff that I'm on, and so I get these notifications. It's like the next batch is about to drop. The next batch is about to drop, and then literally an hour later, everyone's out of stock. Who's got it? Where can I get it? What's it? And it's just like, because everyone knows that it's sought after, suddenly everyone who wants to make a quick buck on the secondary market is grabbing them, and it's just stopping people who actually want to engage and enjoy the whiskey from actually getting their hands on them. I really wanted to pick up the new version of their cask strength, but by the time I got home from work and took a look, it was gone. I did manage to pick up Kilkerran 16, which I'm excited to try. But it was
wonderful.
Oh, you've already
won't be
sampled it, have you?
Yes.
So, what do you think? I've seen so many people have pointed out that Kilkerran hasn't got a mention here, and Kilkerran should get a mention here.
And
I'm kind of like,
I think on number 8. Yeah, I was going to mention them on number 8 on that category.
So technically, this different distillery, sure, but it's made by the same people.
Yeah, but I mean, it's Glencadam Distillery, so it's not. Yeah.
But is it? I don't know. In my mind, it's more about the philosophy and the way you respect your product as to the outcome than it is about the specific equipment in a way. So if I was to vote for Springbank, I would kind of be bundling Kilkerran and Longrow in with them, because it's their product range. It's the same guys making fantastic whiskey on different equipment. And so, Kilkerran I really enjoy, and I do think it deserves its place in here, but I kind of feel like it's already represented. And if it was to be, if you had Springbank and Kilkerran and Longrow, what is that saying about the rest of the Scotch offerings, the rest of the distillery offerings? It's kind of like, it's a bit harsh, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think Longrow and Hazelburn and Springbank are lumped into the Springbank section of this best distillery, but I don't think, let's say they win, right? I don't think Glengyle Distillery is going to put that Kilkerran won best distillery of the OSWAs. I don't think that will happen. You know what I mean? I don't know. We'll see.
I guess they don't strike me as the kind of guys. I've never seen a little badge or a sticker on their boxes.
Right. I mean,
anyway.
you're probably not going to anyway. Yeah, they have pretty simple marketing on their bottles. So not that they would, but
I think part of their success, or a big chunk of their success, is the fact that they're letting the whiskey talk for itself, and they're going, "We'll make good whiskey," and thank God that whiskey enthusiasts know it's good whiskey, because it does disappear within hours. So that they're not making enough of it, to be frank. They could probably double. If they were to double production, they would still be behind on sales. So they're doing a fantastic job of what they are doing.
Great stuff for sure. Yeah, love it.
But so Loch Lomond was your nomination.
Yeah.
But what else do you think deserves a mention? Because I've got a little list here.
Oh, go for it. No, that was my main one that I put through, and then I was kind of surprised that it didn't make it all the way to this section as a nominee. So you go ahead if you have more.
So again, personal bias. How could Lagavulin not get a mention? This is the best whiskey. What are you on about? This? No, I'm being facetious. I'm being silly there. But that I owe quite a lot to Lagavulin. It was my gateway whiskey into peat. I bought a bottle to celebrate my engagement to Jo, now wife, and that became my celebration whiskey. And every time I got that out, it was because something good was happening. And now every time I drink Lagavulin, it's got that association. This is my happy place. This is my happy place. So Lagavulin, absolutely, I feel should be represented somewhere. Even though it's Diageo, it's chill filtered, it's coloured. Yeah. The peat is robust enough that it kind of pushes that to the side, and there's still plenty there. Where am I? Kilchoman.
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one.
If we, ignoring the fact that this is a port cask matured, if you look at pretty much any of the Kilchoman releases, you've got non-chill filtered, you've got natural colour. They are starting to get to the point where they have the confidence to put age statements on, but they're old enough that you're still buying 8-year-old, 10-year-old whiskey, even when it's not necessarily got an age statement on there. Yeah. They give us authentic, they give us higher ABVs. This is a distillery that is doing what we want, and it kind of feels a bit harsh that we've ignored them a little bit.
Yeah. I think they're up against some stiff competition on Isla. I think I really like Kilchoman, and there are some people that maybe don't like the taste profile, so they don't necessarily think about them. But I think they're doing a great job of kind of putting out things that whiskey enthusiasts enjoy, or at least should enjoy in terms of presentation. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I can't vouch for this specifically, but where am I? Glenturret is another distillery that a bunch of people have mentioned and said that it's turned a corner and it started again doing what we're asking for, and it should have been represented, and it should have been possibly up there in best distillery in with a shout, because it's listening to consumers and it's listening to and catering to our segment. Then for me personally, there's a few favorites that I would have liked to have seen in here, although I can understand why they're not as our communities. I love Tomatin, although I do tend to gravitate towards their special releases, their single casks, their points of interest. There is still a lot of good offerings in their core range, a lot to engage with and a lot to enjoy. Glengoyne, another one for me, where it's been with me and well represented in my whiskey collection from very early on in my journey. It's a distillery that I visited quite early on. It's a distillery that I've thoroughly enjoyed many, many times, and most of what they produce is something that I'm happy I spent money on. Yeah. And Benromach.
I've heard good things about Benromach, I haven't tried them personally. No, I haven't. I've only heard good things. I think I would love it. Same with Glengoyne and Tomatin. I think I've only tried 1 or 2 things from Tomatin. I've only tried the teapot dram, which was fantastic from Glengoyne. But for me, if I'm putting something up as best distillery, I probably have to have quite a few of their whiskeys to see kind of what their entire range expresses. But yeah, so sorry, what were you saying about Ben Romick though?
So it's a Gordon MacPhail. Gordon MacPhail know how to respect whiskey, know how to produce good whiskey. They have essentially been doing what we want aside from the ABV for a good while. But even without the higher ABV, I've always found there to be plenty of engagement because it's a well-made whiskey. It's thick, it's rich. But they've started releasing vintages. I really like vintages. It's as good as an age statement.
Yeah.
And they've started to let that ABV creep up. So again, it's another distillery that's kind of going, well, okay, we'll cater to you guys. We'll give you what you want.
Yeah.
And there's I think they're batch releases or higher ABVs like the 55, 56%. There's some of the contrast ranges. You've got an organic, you've got a peated, and you've got a peat sherry cask matured. I've had samples of a few of them. Well worth picking up, and they're not expensive as well. I think I recently got a couple of them for about 45, 46 pound a bottle, which for what they're offering is good going. It's a really nice, a really nice product.
Yeah, they're on my list for sure of distilleries I want to try. I just can't get any down here, so when I go over to Portugal, we'll I'll get that taken care of. But
yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure if you should admit this online, but I think it's easier to ship stuff to Portugal. So when you're there, drop me a message.
There you go. Hand deliver is.
Yeah.
Just get on a plane.
You're wrong, Alan. It is all about the peat. There is nothing else. No, I fully appreciate. It's just, again, it's a preference. It's a comfort zone kind of thing. I like peated whiskies. I do. I've got more non-peated whiskies than I do peated whiskies. It's like an extra layer of engagement for me.
Yeah.
So, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Why aren't the heavily publicized distilleries showing up here? Why aren't things like Macallan, Dalmore, Bowmore? Why is there this juxtaposition between these aggressively marketed, these whiskies that shove themselves in front of your face, and the whiskies that we actually gravitate towards?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's kind of a question of quality. And I think, probably almost every whiskey enthusiast kind of goes through this journey when they're first starting. They want to try Macallan, Glenfiddich, Highland Park. You kind of just go, oh, yeah, these are the ones because they're the ones that you see first, I guess, right? And that maybe people talk about or you see ads about. But I think as you go through your journey and your palate develops, you kind of just start wanting more engagement. And those are chill filtered, colored, 40% ABV. So, you start, oh, okay, I need 43% for more engagement, or I need, I want these kind of other things that'll, help grip on the palate more. And I think all of these whiskeys, or almost all of these whiskeys, are kind of celebrating that, we want more out of our whiskeys, and these are bringing that, and I don't think those large brands are right now, but we'll see as this shifts. I think this is really interesting. The first year of the OSWAs, I'm excited to see what next year brings, if there's going to be a shift, or maybe even 5 years down the line, the fifth OSWAs, if we're going to see maybe not the biggest of brands, but maybe a couple of these brands start to shift towards these more natural presentations.
We'll take any we can get.
More, if we get one, I'm going to count that as a win.
Roy always says we're whiskey promiscuous. If we get another distillery that start catering towards us, we'll get excited about it.
Yes,
for sure.
We will jump ship. Well, we jump many ships, but
I don't. It's not jump ship. We're not. It's not like I'm going to stop buying the whiskies I already love. It's just like, well, there's another one. I'll lap up as many as I can.
Promiscuous is the right word. Yes, we'll just add it to the repertoire.
So I think it ties into category 1. It ties into those epiphany moments. It ties into that realization of engagement.
Yeah.
And the guys that we are celebrating don't have to tell us to buy their whiskey.
Yeah.
The whiskey
They don't
speaks
need
for
marketing
itself.
teams, honestly.
They'll go. Their marketing teams essentially go, here's a new product, and we've ticked all your boxes, and
Yep.
then we go, yes, please, and
Yep.
it disappears off the shelves.
Easy job for them.
Nice and easy. Okay, quick mention on this Loch Lomond 12 because it's been sat here for a while.
Yes.
I'm really digging the nose. It's got that same confectionery, sweet, a little bit fainty element to it that I picked up on the peated single grain that Roy gave me. It's very, very accessible without being thin, without being limp.
Yeah. Yep.
It's got fruity elements to it, a nice deal of cerealness. And then the palate comes alive, and there's, again, plenty of engagement. Doesn't go thin, doesn't go bitter. It's just pleasant.
Yeah. I'm having the peated, so I'm getting, a little bit of different things, but still wonderful. And yeah, I just love it.
Is that the peated grain that's actually a malt?
Oh, no, this isn't the single grain. This is the peated 12-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what Inchmurin is?
This might be. I just wrote peated 12-year-old on it,
Okay.
just so I would know what it was. But I got it as a sample, so it's probably the Inchburn. I think it is. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. The sample that Roy sent me, I was getting all of these fruity elements, all of these soft confectionery, and then it wasn't until like the back end of the palate that it suddenly went, and here's some peat, and I was like, "Ooh, that was a nice surprise." Enjoying that. It was an extra layer that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's really nice. Love it.
So we had best move on because
for sure.
we are so late into the stream that Roy is waiting in the wings. So
no worries, no worries.
Next category. Oh, before we do, quickly.
Oh yeah.
Did we both vote for Bruichladdich, or did you pick someone else?
I voted for Bruichladdich, and I would have nominated them, but I just love Loch Lomond, and I love Bruichladdich too. So
it's one of those that if you didn't nominate Bruichladdich, then chances are that 5 others were going to anyway.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I gotta not nominate Bruichladdich. Something else.
Okay, so category 5, best independent bottler 2021.
Yeah.
We've already talked about Douglas Lang a little bit, but we both have some thoughts, some opinions on Douglas Lang.
Yeah, so this was actually my nominee and my vote. So I nominated them initially. And to be fair, I haven't had enough of these. Like, I have not had a Delphi. I haven't had North Star. I've heard great things about both of them, and I really want to try North Star especially. But I just kind of like what Douglas Lane is doing. Kind of feel like they're putting like a independent bottler's spin on the 6 classic malts from Diageo. I just think it's a cool way to kind of do something a little bit different, but still put out these kind of blended malts that we enjoy. So
on top of that, a lot of these are their core products are single casks. Signatory in particular, I think Adelphi as well, and obviously the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, they all head towards single casks, and there is something so special to me about a single cask. How distinct and how concise and how the character is 100% that one specific cask. And all of them, when I saw this category, when I looked at them, I was like, wow, they're all great, and they're all essentially doing what we love. It's almost like these guys were the hook for me to get into non-colored, non-chill filtered, and giving us info like, yeah, it's young, try it. Just it is what it is. Get stuck in, see if you like it. So fairly early on, I was really digging my Glengoynes, and I picked up, I think it was 3 different Douglas Lang bottles of Glengoyne, and they ranged from 8 to 11 years, I think they were. They were all ex-bourbon casks, and they were all exactly what we wanted. Decent ABV. This one's 46%, 10-year-old, non-chill filtered, no colouring. And it was through these ex-bourbon casks that I got to know Glengoyne. And I think that has, it's kind of shaped my love of Glengoyne, which is ironic, seeing as all of their products are pretty much produced primarily in ex-sherry casks.
Yeah. Oh,
but the spirit characteristics that you find on, and some of these, because they're not particularly expensive, are semi-tired ex-bourbon, shall we say. So it's largely about that spirit.
Yeah, more spirit driven on these.
Yeah.
So you colored one of these once, didn't you?
Oh, I can't believe you watched that. I was so sad that I did that.
I was like, he could have picked 18 other things to color.
Yeah, but I was like, well, this is what was my justification? This is a whiskey I know. This is a whiskey I love. So I hopefully won't look like a complete fool and fail. And then I was like, I wish I hadn't done this.
Oh, don't worry. For science.
Yeah, I still got that filthy. I mean, look at the color of it.
Yeah.
There's no chance they have
lighter
any
than
room
Chardonnay.
to color that.
Yeah. Crazy.
But yeah, so it's independent bottlers are largely a segment who cater to us. They're largely a segment who know how to treat whiskey, and they've made a business on doing it the right way. So there's plenty here, like Cadenheads and Carnmore and a bunch of others who should be represented. They do fantastic stuff. So it's one of those segments where 6 nominations almost isn't enough. And
I think
for
it's
me
hard.
specifically,
Go ahead.
For me specifically, I can't really judge Scotch Malt Whisky Society because I've had one sample of one bottle.
Yeah.
I don't feel it's fair to judge Signatory because I've only had a couple of their offerings. I've only had one North Star. I've had loads of Douglas Langs because they've never really let me down. There's been a couple that have only been good, but even the good ones have been really interesting. There's been engagement. And again, Gordon MacPhail, there's been loads of good ones. So it's kind of like I can't pick one that I don't think deserves it almost. But for me, Douglas Lang is the one that I know best, and they're the ones that I've spent the most money with and would be confident spending more money with. So that's kind of what I voted for.
Yeah, I do hope that they win. And again, with like Carnmore and Cadenheads, I think it's so hard because, with Aquavitae and Ralphie and just kind of everyone, I mean, you've got such a wide audience. You've got people from the UK, you've got people from the US, and if you can't get Cadenheads or Carnmore, you're not going to vote for them or nominate them because you've never tried them before and you potentially don't even know about them, But then if you have, Gordon and MacPhail, for example, available, you're probably going to vote for them over something you've maybe never heard of, So it's kind of hard when you have such a wide audience and certain, bottles are less available than others. But again, just because they're not available doesn't mean that they shouldn't be nominated, but it's kind of hard to balance. I don't know what you would do next year to kind of fix that. And I don't know if there is a fix for it,
For someone like Douglas Lang, who does do the blends, that gives them a large advantage in just batch size and exposure on the international markets. Whereas Signatory, who fixate on the single casks, once you've drained a single cask, that's it. You need a different one to produce a different expression. So each batch is almost 300 bottles.
Yeah.
And so your exposure from and people chatting around that single cask is nowhere near what you'd get from something that you can regularly put out, I suppose.
Right. And I mean, the body of work, I think, from Signatory, even though, like you say, you can only get, one cask potentially, I think as long as you're consistent and all of the casks that anybody has tried are just, wonderful, then I do agree with what you're saying completely. But I do think with something like Signatory, as long as you're consistent and put out wonderful products, I think you still deserve a nomination, which is probably why they're up here for sure.
Yeah. I think I've heard a lot of people being very passionate about Signatory single casks, but they've always kind of said it's this specific cask and giving you the number.
Right.
And so if you go looking for that number, you're like, it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
I'm too late. And so you can be like, well, this is from the same distillery, but it's at the same premium price because they always tend to be quite expensive, quite old single casks.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's kind of tough for me to go, yeah, I'll give you my 150 quid on a bit of a long shot. And
it is a gamble for sure. Yeah, you get, and I think just in general, independent bottlers are a gamble sometimes, unless you're talking like blend. But if you're talking single cask, it's like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this one like I liked, the other one. Like I had I think it was a 2006 Kleinleash single cask from no, I think it was a 1996. I can't remember, but it was an older one. And it's like, I love Kleinleash. I loved that, but potentially another Kleinleash that I have from Signatory, I might not enjoy as much, It's probably not going to happen. I'm probably going to love all of them, but I just like Kleinleash, so.
I caught a lot of flack for my my recent review, the Kleinleash 14.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't quite get the engagement that everyone else seemed to from it. I didn't slag it off.
No worries. It's your opinion.
It's just I think possibly it was the wrong batch or something, or possibly I don't have the context of a single cask to kind of go, well, this is why I like their single malt. This is why I like their spirit characteristics.
Yeah.
Picking up on, I guess, building on your point, Signatory is available and offer great stuff, but they will not shy away from bottling mediocre whiskey once in a while, and that is the worry to me. If you're asking, like this Glengoyne single cask, I think put me back 35 quid.
Mm-hmm.
If you're asking for 150 quid, I kind of want to know that it's going to be bob on, that it's going to be worth 150 quid, because otherwise there is so many other bottles that even if it's good but not amazing, I'm still going to love it.
Right.
And Luna Arran, independent bottlers internationally is maybe not such a good idea because there are national independent bottlers that don't distribute outside their country of origin.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me in the UK to really comment on that and say, well, these are the guys that you can't get elsewhere. But even if we, like we were saying about specific single casks only reaching so far, if they struggle to cater to the UK market, it doesn't surprise me at all that they can't go any further. 300 bottles across the UK is one or two per whiskey shop. So never mind the rest of the world.
Yeah. So I kind of wonder it's so hard, this is the first year. So, trying to narrow down categories, is really tough, but I'm kind of curious to see if that category is going to change, or who knows? It's above my pay grade, let's just say, because I don't know how to go about that, for next year.
It wouldn't surprise me if next year the people who are putting nominations forward have picked up some of the bottle. Like, let's say they nominated Adelphi and then someone else wins and they go, okay, I'll go and try that. And it wouldn't surprise me if they previously hadn't had the exposure to that independent bottler, because for me personally, there's a couple here I've not tried, I've not really fully explored, I can't fully appreciate. Yeah. But if they were to win, I'd put more credence in it and I'd be like, well, yeah, I'll give them a shot.
Right.
And so it wouldn't surprise me if it kind of flits about and so the nominations change just purely based on this year's results.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see maybe if, Cadenheads or those other ones that people were pretty disappointed that were not on here, potentially, we were all doing our nominations, right? And we are thinking about whiskeys that we've had before. And maybe after hearing people kind of gripe that Cadenheads isn't on here, you try hard to get a bottle of Cadenheads and see what everybody's, kind of not complaining about, but just kind of exposing that, they didn't maybe appreciate it being left off the list, I guess. So yeah, it'll be cool. I think it's, good exposure for independent bottlers, and then, you can try new ones you haven't tried before. So yeah, it's cool.
It's I guess what they've personally engaged with. If it's not on the list, then they feel slighted almost. Like Douglas Lang, who were the ones that I kind of have gravitated towards and have had success with. If they weren't on the list, I'd be like, oh, well, they're my safe space.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this Glengoyne is pretty reminiscent of the ones I've had before, but a little bit sweeter, I think. It's got a really nice pastry element, plenty of orchard fruits. There's some peaches, apples. It's a little bit fuzzy, if that makes sense. There's this cereal body that's got plenty of...
That sounds good.
Plenty of character. And then there's this bubbling pepper. I always see it as like a black pepper, cracked black pepper. And talking to, I've forgotten his last name. He's called Gordon at the distillery at Glengoyne. He always calls it Glengoyne's lumps and bumps.
Oh, okay.
Where it's got this fuzziness, got a little bit of pepper, got a little bit something extra that helps it not just to be another sherried whiskey. It helps it to have a bit more character.
Yeah. Well, now I feel like I need to pour a teapot dram. I know it's totally different than what you're drinking, but I'm like, dang it.
No, it wasn't Dundas. That's why I can't remember his name. He's not... What's the right word? He's not a head honcho. He's one of the brand representatives in the store and doing tours, and he does some of the history talks and stuff. He's a really fun guy to drink whiskey with.
They usually are. Brand representatives seem to be.
What a great job that must be.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Okay, so probably talk this one to death as well.
Yeah.
Are you happy if we move on? I am going to love you and leave you, drop you out of this one and bring Jim back for the next one. Cheers, Shayla.
No worries. Cheers.
Welcome back, Jim.
Cheers.
So the next category we are looking at is Best New Distillery 2021. And there's a specific reason that I've brought you in here. It's because you have already opened and tried the Arran American, haven't you?
Well, actually, I didn't. I read your thing again, and it's actually it was the earlier this year release. It's the 012101, that one. And the reason,
go on.
Well, the reason I bought it was because I had a sample of the very first. This was the second release, and I had a sample of the first release, and absolutely loved it.
Yeah. I have heard a few people say that this one didn't quite live up to that one.
Oh, right.
So, fingers crossed, there's still everything that I want in it, but it could well be that yours is slightly better anyway. Neck pour, so let's not worry too much about it. It did take this one to open up. I bet it has to be said.
Okay. This is an interesting category.
Yeah, this is a bit of a popping category at the moment, isn't it? There's 15-ish new distilleries popping up. These are the ones that they're kind of the first of the new wave, if you like, of distilleries. We've had, in addition to Ardbeg, Kingsbarns, Lindores, Watford, Torvaig, and Nicnean, we have had Clydeside, Isle of Rassay, and I think they're all this year. But the list of whiskies that are yet to come, whiskies that are just being put in casks now, so we'll see them in a few years possibly, is maybe twice that.
It's an interesting subject because it's almost like this best indie, the best independent baller, where this is, unless you've tried all of the new distilleries that come out in the last 6 months even, it was a hard category to work on. Yeah.
I've not touched Waterford. I've not touched Torvaig. I've not touched Kingsbarns yet. I have a Nicnean, but I haven't opened this one. I was I was on the fence as to which one I'd open tonight, but when you said you had an Arnhem, I thought it tied it in nicely. So again, it's one of those that it's tough to really pick one whilst you aren't sure what the others have to offer. It feels again like voting from ignorance.
Because out of those, well, I haven't actually tried the King's Barnes or the Lindor's Abbey yet. I have samples of both, but I'm just holding on to them for now, and I'll get a chance to try them again at some point.
I visited these guys, I think, within the first year that they opened, and I still haven't put together a video on it, but they let me sample the new make spirit fresh off the stills, and it was interesting. They got 1 wash still, 2 spirit stills, and the 2 spirit stills, although they were brand new and they were made to be identical, they had different characters. So they had a glass from still A and a glass from still B, and I very strongly preferred still A. It was like way fruitier and richer and deeper, and it's just like, how is this happening? It's the same equipment, and they're like, the only thing we can think of is that one is closer to the wash still, so it's slightly warmer, and it's just like bizarre. So I really rated the Lindor's new make spirit. So I'm looking forward to cracking that one open and seeing what it's like after it's been aged.
I hear great things. And I mean, it's great to see these new, I know you know that it's happening, as I put it, day and daily here in Ireland. There seems to be a new distillery opening. But it's nice to see that in Scotland, it's still happening as well, you know, and especially it was nice to see a few of them starting to pop up in the lowlands, because the lowlands always seemed to be one of those regions that almost was forgotten about, you know, where we just don't really grasp in the same way as we do with all the other regions. So it's nice to see these new distilleries. And there's other ones that I was actually surprised that Annandale didn't get in there. You know, there are other ones.
Is Annandale the guys who do the Man of Swords and
yes.
Man of Words, is it?
Yeah.
I always look at them and think that their asking price hurts them, because they're expensive whiskies for what they are.
It's
and I've heard good things about them, but until the opportunity arises and I get to try them to back up the recommended retail price, I'm kind of sat there going, I have more faith in other options, and so that's what I've put my money on.
See, it's a prime example, this, and yet again, when I said about it being a bit like the independent bottlers category, and we especially you, I, and everybody in this chat and everybody else puts an awful lot of money into their whiskey, an awful lot of money. So, like independent bottlers, you're taking a chance on a cask, you're taking a chance on that independent bottler for a start, and you're taking a chance on their pick of a cask, a single cask, or whatever way it may be. New distilleries, you're taking an even bigger risk, I think, and I think there's an awful lot of it where you're just following the crowd, and I'm guilty of it the same as everybody else, you know, where if everybody tells me Nicknane's good, I'll buy it. If everybody tells me Ardbeg American's good, I buy it, you know, and but then it's not until you try it yourself that you actually know whether it's for your palate or not. Yeah. So, and like Waterford, I am highly surprised that Waterford's in there.
Is that based on having tried it, or
both? Well, it's based on having tried it, and sort of, I have a beef with Waterford, and I've voiced it before, and that they made this great thing about terroir, and about they were making a bigger thing about terroir than anybody else seemed to be doing. And then one of the first things they did was mature in different casks naturally, but don't make a big thing about where the grain's coming from and what you're doing with it, and then mature it in different casks, right? Because you're changing the flavor no matter what, you know.
So you can't do a like for like contrast, because you're not getting spirit driven whiskey, you're getting cask driven whiskey.
Yeah. So it just that stuck with me with Waterford from the outset. Now, their stuff isn't awful. Don't get me wrong. What I've had 3, maybe 4 Waterfords now. I can't remember what they were off the top of my head because they're 1.1s, they're first, second releases, etc. But it's not awful. But just there's a certain amount of the way they've went about it, and the whiskey didn't live up to the hype for me.
Right.
So it definitely pulled them down. I was highly surprised to see them in here. Laphroaig, I've had and liked. It just, sort of, it was one of those that sort of came and went a bit.
Okay. I was on the fence about buying an Isle of Rassy, and I started looking at reviews because I hadn't heard much noise in this community. So I started looking at reviews, and there were as many scathing reviews as there were positive reviews. So I was like, I'll leave that one a little bit more. I'll leave that one a little bit longer. But one thing that I think is worth mentioning with these new distilleries is they all seem to be doing what we're asking for. The non-chill filtered, the natural color, the 46%. So they know that they need a community like ours to back them up, to get excited about their whiskey, to spread the word, but also to lap up their early products. And because of that, they are worth getting excited about because they're doing what we're asking and certainly giving them a shot.
I think they need to build the fan base, and once they build the fan base, then slightly further down the line, obviously they can't continue to bang out every aged whiskey at at those prices, etc. So I mean they'll level out.
It's a free marketing department, isn't it? But if Nick Nean later on down the line they start doing a 12-year-old whiskey, 10-year-old whiskey, whatever, and they start charging more than this, if we know this is good and they're still doing it at a decent ABV and they're still doing it at good color and non-chill filtered, we'll pay more for it.
Yeah.
The basis that they are building with putting out sensible whiskey now is going to give us confidence to spend more in the long run.
Well, now's the time to look at when we're looking at new distilleries now. It's the time to look at Springbank and Kilkerran and distilleries like that aren't that old, to see how they've progressed and see how well they've done. And it's keeping it real, I think, is what is going to make it work for them further down the line. It's keeping it right now, and they didn't rush. They didn't. This is something yet again that has put me off, and I've mentioned it before in live streams of my own about Irish distillers, all these new Irish distillers bringing in whiskies from other from the older distilleries and sticking their label on it, etc., and putting it out. It's obviously it's not as simple as that, but at least I appreciate what most, I think, was it Rassy, I think, was the only one that pulled in from elsewhere. Not sure. They've waited until their own spirit has had at least the 3 years, and then they've put it out. What do you think of that?
I'm digging it.
I was just about to say, I don't know whether that I don't know you well enough to know whether that face is good or bad.
No. This is a little bit of a masochist, I guess. I like it when a whiskey kind of gives you a kick and says, "Hey, pay attention." But on the nose, this is almost what I feel Bowmore could be. It's got that thick minerality, and it's got sweet elements. It's got a lot of richness to it. But then on the palate, it comes through and it just goes mad a little bit. And there's it's a very pleasant but a very present solvent tone.
It's incredibly well balanced. So I think there's absolutely nothing to me that steps off and says I'm making this a bad whiskey. It all plays very, very well together.
But it's not boring by any means, is it?
No.
It's well balanced, but with plenty of points of interest.
What percentage is yours bottled at there, actually? I never looked at the...
46.8.
Yeah, this is the same. So obviously it must be their sweet spot. But no, I think I think Ardbeg American are all of these ones. They're good representatives of the way Scotch whiskey is moving forward. It's something different, and it's going to be incredibly interesting to see how they progress and what their aged whiskey is like when it's even to look at the likes of Douglas Lang again with Strathearn and say that, well, there's technically a new distiller, somebody who's now working on their own, working independently, if you excuse the pun. So it's an incredibly messed up world, Scotch whiskey.
Which is part of the fun, surely.
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely.
I have a feeling that I abstained from this one because the only point I had that I could reference was Lindor's Abbey's New Make Spirit. So again, being out of the loop, I didn't really feel like I had the right to have a say on this one.
Mm-hmm.
How about yourself?
I probably should have, but I think with most of these, and somebody actually did pull me on it a couple of weeks back and said you could have abstained. If you didn't know enough, you could have. And the way I looked at it was, well, in this case, there's 4 of them at least that I know. There was other ones that came up in the original, as you know, the original nominations that didn't make it to the final vote that I'd had. And the way I looked at it was, well, if I was waiting to have all the whiskies from everything, it'd be a long way down the line. So I still voted, and I did. I backed Ardbeg American because I do like this. I mean, out of what I've had of all of them, Ardbeg American was the one that definitely stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, can't judge it off the neck pour, really. But what I've had of this just now on the first few sips, I have a feeling if I was more familiar with this bottle, I would have had the confidence to vote with Ardbeg American, because this is really, it's not just good whiskey, it's really interesting good whiskey.
And the fact is, it's young. We know that there's something we know about this whiskey, and it's that it's young. But if they've got this is somebody then that says to me they know whiskey well enough to have the confidence to put it out at this age, and they've got the faith in it to put it out, and they're 100% right in my opinion, because it's good.
Yeah, I wonder how much it would have lost, or how much it may lose in the future of what I'm finding here, this kind of punchy, interesting, rich characteristic. I wonder how much it'll tail off over time. And maybe Ardbeg American Young is in itself just really good. It's a really good way to present the whiskey.
You said it earlier. I mean, as peated whiskies, they work well young, most of them. And you could be 100% right there. It could tail off, and something while I'm sipping this and talking to you, I'm finding incredibly interesting about it is the finish. The finish is class. The finish is something that a lot of times I don't think it's talked about, but this is really creamy, rich, and memorable, and makes you want to just go back for more.
Absolutely, that was I think my reaction earlier, was how it just lingered on the palate, how it left you with so much character and flavor, even as the liquid was gone. It was ever present, and that was kind of like, this is a whiskey that's giving you a lot for what it is. Yep. So let's move on, because I see that Menno is waiting, and he's not feeling well. So if we want to do a quiz, I best get around to him soon. I'll drop you out for now and see you again shortly. Cheers, Jim. Hi. Sorry for not giving you any warning. I'm in rush mode. I just realised that we're coming up for 2 hours, and I remember.
Yeah, the protocol is you need to build somebody up so you don't bring them in mid nose pick.
I'll
buddy,
figure this out
Ben, I have
eventually.
to say thank you so much. I have to say thank you to Jim Ingram and Sheila as well for all of you kind of pitching up and doing a wee pop-up vPub as well. I can't tell you the weight that it took off my shoulders this week. It's very much appreciated. It's fantastic as well. Superb.
Sorry, it's been such a mess. Next time I'll get it figured out beforehand.
No, listen, it's been super slick, Ben. It's been really, really slick. And the audio is really easy and nice. As I've been working away here, I've been just listening to just dropping in and out from time to time and doing other things. And the audio is nice and clear, and it's almost working perfectly as a kind of podcast style thing. So I've enjoyed it. Thanks for keeping me company on a Thursday night as well. Wow, you're learning why the vPub goes on for 3 hours, aren't you?
Absolutely.
So I think if we do want to, maybe what might be a nice idea is to do it's your show, Ben. Sorry. Maybe because Menno's a wee bit poorly and it's he's an hour ahead of us. We might want to do the quiz now, and then if we have an after party to talk about the last two, and I'll just need to be very careful not to. I need to keep my poker face, don't I? Because I've been crunching for the last 2 weeks. I've just been crunching all the kind of the numbers and the data and trying to present it in a palatable way. So that might be an idea. I don't know.
I'm all for that. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I know there's a good bunch of people who hang on specifically for the quiz, and perhaps covering the last two whilst we're a little bit further down the line and a little bit more embarrassed could be fun in itself.
That's right. And you know, it's a Menno quiz, so we're especially excited and ever so slightly nervous, Sheila, right?
Yes. I feel like Menno quizzes should be like open book quizzes. I don't know if you guys have those over there, but where you have Google the book quizzes. And you can just look up things if you need.
Yeah. So Menno, here's your warning. I'll afford you a warning. I'm about to bring you in.
Yay!
Hi, Menno.
Hey.
How's things? I hope you're feeling okay.
Yeah. I'm fine. Just nothing a bit of paracetamol didn't fix, so I'm all good.
And when paracetamol fails, a small dram. With paracetamol.
But it's actually the stomach, so I'm abstaining from any alcohol. So.
Okay. Get well soon, buddy.
So, are you ready if I bring in your monitor?
Yeah, I think so. Should be. Here we go.
So, what can we expect here, Menno? Have you gone easy on us tonight?
Well, if I say I think so, it turns out to be a horribly difficult one. So.
Oh gosh.
No, I think there's some easy ones in there as well. So.
Well, the only quiz that I have failed to get a pass mark on in the last 3 years of quiz at the ends was a Sheila quiz. So let's hope it's not as bad as that one. Oh, our host has dropped out.
Do you still have me on audio?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I'm not sure what my camera is choosing to do. This is fantastic. I'll keep myself off, but I'll be here on audio and I'll try and figure out what's going on.
Oh, no worries.
Sure, no problem. I think it's Menno that's driving now anyway.
Okay, then let's get it on the road. So prior to the launch of their 12-year-old as a core range expression, Glencadam released a yearly batch of Kilkerran work in progress, each with a different number and color. How many of these work in progress whiskies were released? Would that be A5, B7, or C9?
I've had one of these.
It's one of those second guess ones, right? But the answer I was looking for came up, so I'm going to go with it.
Okay. So I'm gonna.
Okay.
Oh, should I?
Yeah, just in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, whoops! Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Ben's back.
Oh, I may have guessed right because it's the same as Roy's.
My guess was going to be C. I had in my head that there was 8 of them, and I don't know why I had had that in my head. But if there was 8, then there's possible there was 9, but not 7. So I'm going with C.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's quite a complicated way of thinking about it. When it was actually 7.
And subsequently wrong.
Yeah. Okay, question 2. Bruichladdich recently announced that in 2025 they seek to do what? Will they A, stop the production of Octomore, B, become a net zero emission distillery, or C, build a second Islay distillery?
I actually know this one. Yay. Or, I mean, I think I know this one. I don't want to get too confident.
I think they're going to do all of that.
I don't see them ever stopping the cash cow that is Octomore.
Yeah. You didn't get the press release then, Ben?
I'm not at that pay grade just yet.
Okay, the crowd is kicking it out of the park, I think. So what do you guys say?
I was going B.
B. Absolutely. We are striving to become a net zero emission distillery. Question 3. Campbelltown was truly the whiskey capital of the world in the 19th century. At its peak, it could boast how many distilleries? Was it A, 17, B, 26, or C, 35?
Oh, Menno, you're being kind to us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, that is a confident statement. That's isn't it?
That's
I mean,
not
I
what I
might
was
be
thinking.
wrong, but I feel like you're being nice so far, at least. Because I think I know this one too, because I did a video about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
So-
then by all means, show me your answers.
This is what I think.
See?
We
I
got
hope I'm right.
A lot of C, and Ben is on C as well. And of course, you're absolutely right. So well done. As the crow flies, question 4, by the way, which distillery is located closest to the actual Corryvreckan whirlpool? And this could be a banana skin. Is it A, Ardbeg, B, Bowmore, or C, Jura?
Ooh. Let's see.
Before you put options up, I had an idea in my head, and then it wasn't one of the options.
I think this is a very mild banana skin because of the as the crow flies thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You ready?
Wow.
Okay.
I'm going to put my vote in there as C.
Yeah, me too.
C.
And could it
Well
be?
done.
Oh. The
Here
banana
it is.
skin almost had
Actually,
me wobble there.
I took this crappy picture of an actual bottle of Corryvreckan, so there it is.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Then
Terrific.
we're on to question 5. Which distillery are we looking at? It's an OSWA nominated. Is it A, Glen Scotia, B, Highland Park, or C, Glencadam?
Oh, no.
I think you're being very kind to us. Is this just the outward walk? Are you just leading us down this comfortable little
Maybe.
pathway?
No, I think I have been kind this evening.
This is what happens, Roy. You, we do hard quizzes, and then you say go a little soft, and then he's going soft.
Well, I think he's worked out how to blend it. I think he's going to brutalize us on the second half.
We're gonna get 5 out of 10.
Yeah. When you're ready.
I'm
buddy.
going with C again. A bit of a guess, but I don't think it's
C. Absolutely.
Campbelltown or Orkney.
Glencadam.
Okay.
Wow, this is the highest
Well
I've ever
done.
scored on a Menno quiz, I think. Oh no, I got an 8 out of 10 once. That was a random one though.
Okay, a slight asshat question possibly. Glenturret Towser the Mouser is still the official world record holder for capturing most mice in her life, but she also lived to quite a respectable age. Which distillery releases a whiskey that matches that age?
Okay,
I thought you
here
were
it
gonna ask
comes.
how many
It is
Here it
A,
comes.
Knockdo. So Anok, is it B, Craigellachie, or is it C, Glengoyne?
Ooh. I was at Glenturret very recently, and this fact came out, but I don't remember it.
I can't.
I think perhaps I do. I'm ready. I'm ready when you are.
Okay,
I'm guessing.
then by all means, we've got B for Roy, B for Shayla, and Ben, what do you say?
I said A based on the fact that they have some weird age statements out there.
Mm-hmm. It was Craig Gallagher, 23-year-old.
I
Yes.
couldn't remember if it was
That's an
23 or
old cat.
24. Yeah.
That's a very old cat indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to reread the first 4 words of your question there to figure out what was going on.
Sorry, a bit of a long question. Okay. Question 7. The use of ex-bourbon casks for the maturation of Scotch whiskey wasn't really common until the 1930s. Which OSWA-nominated distillery played a key role in introducing bourbon casks to mature whiskey? Was it A. Springbank, B. Talisker, or C. Laphroaig?
Ooh,
Wow.
Good question, Minnow.
I am interested in this one.
Me too.
This is finally one I feel like I know the answer to.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. I do not.
Well, we're a good blend as well, aren't we? If we could pool our answering power, we'd do quite well.
Answers by committee.
I am
Gosh.
slightly upping the ante on the questions, I think.
Yes, I think you are.
Man.
I'm going to be asking for sources on this one afterwards.
I am going with C, and my source is a distillery visit.
I thought it might be C, and I see a bunch of people saying A, so I'm probably wrong, but
Well, one of you got it right.
Uh-oh.
dang it.
It was Laphroaig. It's Ian Hunter. Ian Hunter did numerous trips to the USA to get to know more about bourbon and bourbon casks, and he played a vital role in introducing them to the Scotch whiskey industry as well.
So two of us
Fantastic.
got it right.
Oh, sorry, saying that. I thought
Oh,
you
no
had
worries,
something
no worries.
else.
I was like, oh, crap. Roy's the only one.
Okay, then question 8. Which of these distilleries also releases a liqueur called Rumble made from honey, figs, and sugar? Would that be A. Balcones, B. Cotswolds, or C. Amrut?
Oh,
I know.
So
this.
again, all 3 OSWA-nominated distilleries.
I think Shayla and I are comfortable. We're looking at Ben.
Not in the slightest.
You ready?
And from
Okay, then by all means commit.
my first gut instinct was that it wouldn't be Balcones, so it feels like cheating to go with the crowd. So it seems like it's academic at the moment, but let's go with B.
Go with the crowd, Ben. Always go with the crowd. It was Balcones.
I haven't tried it.
I haven't either. And the only reason I knew about it is because I was doing research for this this stream. I wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about. Because they were my pick for number 7, which we'll go into after this.
Mm.
A lot of 8 out of 8 so far and 7 out of 8, so pretty decent tonight. Not making too many enemies this evening.
No.
Absolutely. Lots of
Okay,
people
then.
going strong.
Second to last question. It is the Tua glass, and mind the pronunciation on this one, is the Irish answer to the Glencairn. But what does Tua mean in Irish Gaelic? Is it A, drink, B, clan, or C, country?
I feel like somebody told me this once, but I really don't remember. I have a guess, but... Oh, good questions, Meadow.
Yeah.
Tough questions. It's another guess from me. I feel like A is hitting it too cleanly on the head. I'll go with B.
So BBB, give yourselves a point.
9 out of 10 or 9 out of 9 so far.
Okay. And it wouldn't be a minnow quiz if there wasn't
And here's where it falls apart.
a sort of stupid asshat question at the end. Okay, you ready?
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
So,
Let's go.
150 years ago, whiskey was just starting to establish itself with brands like Usher and Johnny Walker. In 1860, the total annual malt whiskey production in Scotland would have been what?
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Is it A, about the same as the production capacity of the two biggest distilleries today, Glenlivet and Macallan? Is it B, about the same as what famous grouse now globally sells each year? Or is it C, less than the current production capacity of all Islay distilleries combined?
God.
Well, I have a reputation to maintain, so
So this is just throw a rock,
Yeah.
and whatever it hits is what you're going to go with, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I
It's
feel like we
difficult
should
to
all.
even reason this.
I'm going with C. I'm putting my claim
I'm
in
gonna
there
just
early.
go with B. It's just a guess, and I'm probably gonna get it wrong, but
Glenlivet and Macallan together is a huge amount of whiskey.
yeah. So it has to be B or C, right? But then it's probably gonna be A because it just seems unlikely. But I'm gonna just go with B. I don't know.
It could be any of them. I'm trying to put myself in Menno's head, and it's an ugly place to be.
you don't know the half of it.
So many people are guessing C that it makes me nervous. But everybody's just throwing a rock, though, right? I mean.
Okay, Roy, we got Ben and Shayla. How about you?
I think if you add up all the current malt distilleries on Islay, it's quite small. I don't know anything about the grouse thing. I don't even know what value you're measuring there. Bottles, cases, liters. I don't know what that is.
Liters, LPA, liters per annum.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to change my mind then. I'm just going to go with this, and it's risky as hell. I'm already one down. It doesn't matter. I've got a comfortable score. Give us a countdown, buddy.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. What is that? A B, a B. Okay.
Give me a 10 out of 10. Come on.
Shayla.
No whammies. No whammies.
You got a 10 out of 10.
Well done. Well done.
Oh, sweet.
10 out of 10 live on screen for Shayla Fram.
Yes.
The
Oh my
studious Shayla, fantastic.
Yay.
I
Thanks for
stopped
pitching
counting
an
how
easy
many I
quiz,
got
Menno.
wrong.
Did you got a pass mark though, Ben, right?
Yeah, I think it was
I
6 out
think
of 10.
Ben's on 6 or 7 out of 10, so it's still pretty decent.
I have a feeling it was 6.
I slipped up on the bourbon cask one, the Laphroaig one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a good one. Ian Hunter, you said. I've written it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Tremendous. Now we're off higher. Now we can relax again. Now everybody can relax.
Oh, that was cool, Menno. Thanks for the quiz. That was great.
Listen,
Thank you very much.
Menno, I can't tell you how nice it is just to kind of have you there, kind of going, yeah, I've got some questions. I can bring them along. Do you need them? Yeah, we could do with them. And it took a load off my shoulders this week, and I'm sure it took a wee bit off of Ben's shoulders this week as well, having you able to pitch in as well.
I tell you what, if I'd have put a quiz together, it would have been a whole hell of a lot of 10 out of 10.
Where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where's the fun in people being happy?
Oh, God.
Well, look at Shayla. She's got the biggest smile tonight. So
I never thought I'd get
And rightfully
yeah.
so.
it's
This is
deserved.
a
It's
lot
deserved.
of luck.
No, I don't think it is, Sheila. I genuinely don't think it is. I
So-
love watching. I mean, literally, we talk about whiskey journeys online. We're watching not only somebody have a whiskey journey, but somebody sharing what they're learning about whiskey at the same time. Sheila, that's exactly what we're seeing over at Whiskey Central. Superb. I was jumping into the lounge there to read this chat, and I forgot that it's I'm not behind the bar tonight. You are, Ben.
Yeah.
I can relax.
Thanks very much, Menno. Thank you for embarrassing me. Thank you for your quiz, and I hope you're feeling better soon.
Oh yeah. I'm on the mids.
Perfect.
Hang out as long as you like, big guy, and if with your
Will do.
tea, and your paracetamol. Get well soon, buddy.
Cheers.
Do you want to slip off into the wings while I bring Jim in, or do you want to stay with us?
Just drop me in the background. It's fine.
Perfect. All right, Jim, this is your warning that I'm bringing you back in.
I didn't even know Jim was still here. Now, Jim, you have to tell us, what did you score?
You'd have been some surprise if I hadn't standing with my trousers down, wouldn't you?
So you got a 10 out of 10 then?
8 out of 10, which isn't bad, actually.
No, that's a good.
Terrific.
I mean, considering one of the reasons we left Europe was because of Menno, but
oh, bless him. What a guy.
Okay, so Roy, going to be
awesome.
playing careful here not to let anything slip, but
yes, poker face time. Poker face. Yep.
Back onto our topic, and I've lost my screen. Let's bring that back. So we are looking at best world whiskey as the next category. And this is a category that I am shamefully inexperienced on. I've tried Balcones Texas Malt, I think, and that was courtesy of Roy, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I have tried the Elijah Craig small batch and the Redbreast, and neither of them really settled well with me. They were not my cup of tea. They were blind, and it may have been the Redbreast 12, to be honest. But I can't really contribute much here. I don't know what I'm talking about. So over to you guys.
I'm drinking Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch B520 right now, so that was one of my favorites. But my nominee was actually for Balcones single malt. That's what I put forward. So
that tells us how you managed to get 10 out of 10, Sheila. You've been drinking the bottle of WoW, and it's charged your synapses are firing in overdrive. I'm going to hold up a wee whiskey that I was kind of surprised didn't get much of a mention, but I can almost understand it as well.
Yeah.
One of the big successes over recent years in terms of English whiskey. But I think in so many ways, Bimber is a victim of its own success because a lot of people are struggling to get a hold of it. So maybe that's why it didn't get much a nomination. I don't know how much the distribution is made outside of the UK. But even if it did, it would only put a strain on what limited stock there is already. My biggest problem with Bimber is that you can't join the club in terms of buying a bottle for less than £65, even the core range stuff. But it is what it is. I mean, people are after it now. It's been talked up. It's been enjoyed. It is quite flavoursome whiskey. But there wasn't enough of a value proposition there for Bimber to make it, and that's the 2 points I want to make. Really enjoyed listening in on you tonight, kind of eavesdropping at the start of the show, and then listening a bit more intently midway through. And I think what comes across is still a lot of this kind of interpretation of the categories. Jim, you were talking about the grain category, for example, and a lot of people have been talking about. Why is Waterford, for example, in this year? Since when was Waterford a Scotch distillery? And so there's going to be confusion about the OSWAs until it's finished and people have a chance to look at it from the perspective of after it's happened and the pennies dropped on all the kind of, because our ideas we feel that they're pretty solid, but our execution of those ideas is flawed. I think that's what the problem is. So a lot of the messaging and a lot of the communication is coming from just me. And if I'm not on it when I'm spinning all these plates and I'm not making it clear, it's down to me and I take responsibility for that. But what I need to say is the most important thing, online Scotch Whisky Awards. The Scotch in that title just represents the community that's active in bringing the awards. It doesn't mean that it's only for Scotch whisky. That's probably the most important thing. So if you're a Scotch lover and you're in our community and you're loving Scotch whiskies, and you look at this category number 7, world whiskies, you're going to be pointed in the direction of whiskies that you're probably going to enjoy if you're loving Scotch. That's no mistake that single pot still Irish is heavily represented. It's no mistake that Waterford is there. Waterford is making Scotch whiskey, incidentally, in Ireland, okay? That it's double distilled. It's putting barley malt first. That's their unique thing. So it's no mistake twice in the grain category, because guess what? If you're a Scotch lover and you want to progress into bourbon, I bet you Wild Turkey is going to be the thing, one of the bourbons out there that's going to grab you and make you pay attention. And I think that's what's kind of coming out of this thing now. We're starting to realise and understand a wee bit that it's that dynamic that's at play here. So that was kind of, it was nice to listen in, but it was also interesting to hear that, you know, the messaging still isn't fully out there yet. Also, there was a lot of discussion about, I've not tried all of these 6 whiskies in this category. And I think, is it okay if I monologue for a wee bit, Ben? You don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot I was hosting for a second there.
Yeah.
Hashtag Roy rant. No, just kidding.
Yeah. Well, I had, and I don't want it to be that.
No, we love him. We love him.
But if you consider that 6 entries into a category, and if somebody looks at that and says, "Oh, I've not tried all of these, I can't vote," what that tells me, and it tells everybody, is that they're coming at this from a very traditional awards model perspective, and that's understandable, because what we're doing here is not a traditional awards model. What we're doing here is different, and it's not in any way to undermine or be disrespectful to the wonderfully successful, doing quite well, thank you very much, awards structures and systems that are out there. They're all doing great things, and they've been doing very well for years and years, most of them. So we're not trying to compete or diminish or destroy. What we're trying to do is bring something that represents what we do here, our community. And we're coming at this from a very different way. Hold up your hand if you try a lot of whiskies. Hold up your hand, keep your hand up if you try an awful lot of whiskies. Keep your hand up if you think you have a chance of trying every whiskey. So it's a nonsensical idea. If we're going to go out there and we're going to try and look at the wide landscape of all even if we just focused on Scotch, it would be impossible. But if we cast our nets to other countries and other styles and categories of whiskey, we give ourselves a completely ridiculous task. It's impossible to do. So the only way we can do it is to crowdsource it. No one of us can have tasted all of these things. So the idea, when you look at those 6 whiskies in that category, is you look at them and you say, have I bought this with my own money? Have I experienced it fully, more than a sample, more than a sip, that kind of thing? Would I buy it again and put it back on my shelf? Maybe. Would it be one of the things that I want to keep on my shelf? And number 3, would I recommend it to a friend? Would I be proud to buy this and gift it to someone? It's something that I love, and I hope that they love too. And if it's there and that whiskey is there represented for you, that it deserves a vote. You consider it for your vote. This is something that you're recommending to your fellow peers in your community. That's what it's about. And we hope that by consensus, the winner is lifted not by a blind tasting panel on the night, not by the samples at hand or whatever it may be. No, we're lifting it using a crowdsource element to try and lift the winner to the top. That's what we're trying to do there. And even if they look at those 6 and they decide that they don't find something that ticks those boxes, they've got a people's choice. They can put in a wild card to say, hey, you forgot something, and I'm going to tell you what it is here. I think what is coming out of OSWA is what will happen on Saturday. I think the most amazing outcome could potentially be that dynamic. So we've got a 3-tier system now. The YouTube channels have stood up and we've taken it, our responsibility as commentators and online, and said, here are your nominations. This is what we're putting forward. This is us taking our place. Then the second tier of the awards is what the public think of that They either rubber stamp it and they give us the numbers and the feedback and the votes that reflect our nominations. And we have the winner. We have the OSWA's winner. And then as a third tier, almost like an icing on a cake or a garnish or something really quite a nice bonus, is this people's vote, this third element to it. There's no award or certificate for the people's vote, but there will be a top 10 chart. And that is, I guarantee you, is fascinating. And it's only now, tonight, that I can tell you how gleefully fascinating it is. I'm so excited about it. For everything that you'll go, oh, okay, yeah, I expected that. There's going to be something else that you're going to go, oh, well, there's a surprise. So that is going to be the thing that makes people understand the dynamics of the OSWAs and how it's not a traditional awards model, but it's certainly something I hope that fits very nicely with our community and the way that we enjoy whiskey on YouTube. But feel free to call me on it after Saturday's happened. Graham Young has bought you a wee dram, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. It's good to be back. It's been too long to be honest. I'm really enjoying being back and engaging with you guys. I love that the idea that this is kind of community owned, and from my point of view, it's been a bit of a revelation. If you hadn't have asked me to do this vPub, and I hadn't had this thought process of actually sitting down and working my way through it, I probably wouldn't have come to the realization of the significance of the OSWAs or quite what it actually meant to us or what it should mean to us. So it's been revealing to me to actually sit back and go, hang on a second, this is not the whiskey industry. This is our specific focus. This is our community and what we're after. And that's made it so much more to me.
It's not only what we're after. I think what's really amazing is that the industry know very well what they are selling. They know where their successes are, right? I'm not going to tell them. Ben down in England, or Jim in Ireland, or Sheila in Mexico, none of us are going to tell the industry where they're succeeding, right? They know where they're succeeding. But what we're able to tell them is not what they're selling or how much they're selling. What we're able to tell them is how much of what's being bought is being loved. And that is a very different thing.
Yeah.
That is a different thing. And I think that you pointed it out early, Ben. I love the way you spoke at the opening to this live stream tonight, how eloquently you spoke about it. It was perfect. I was actually applauding as I was listening to you earlier. We are a sliver of the whiskey drinking public. We are a sliver. We are the jaggy edge. We are the geeky edge. And there are people that are even more geeky than us. But that's the end of the spectrum that we stand. But we also talk tonight about how promiscuous we are. And we are willing to go out and try the new Cutty Sark, the new Aberfalls, the new whatever it is. We are not snobs. I know that the way that we speak about whiskey, it can come across as a wee bit pretentious, but once you spend a bit of time in it, you work out that it's not. We are very promiscuous. So the things that stick, the things that we replace, the things that we buy again, and the things that we get excited about, the things that makes us want to evangelize, I hope that that's what the OSWAs, the structure of the OSWAs, helps float to the surface. I hope that that's what happens. I know, Ben, sorry, we should mention that Ben, when we started this concept, Ben was still in hiatus. He was still dormant. So
I was missing.
He's not been a contributor, but Jim and Sheila both contributed to it. And I hope that Jim and Sheila can kind of stand up and say, yeah, do you know what? This has been very light on our workload. It's not asked for a lot from us. And we've not pestered you to market this thing. It's been left very quiet. You know, there has been a lot of chatter and things about it. And we've learned a lot of lessons through that. But next year, we'll kind of refine it and change it for the future. But what's your take on it? It's been easy for you, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, this has been a wonderful experience. I actually wanted to help more. I was like, I feel like I'm not doing anything. So, I mean, who knows what next year will bring, but no, it's been great to be a part of, although I don't feel like I have done enough to even be considered to be a part of it, because there wasn't really much to do. You've pretty much taken care of everything, and we just kind of put our 2 cents in, and no, it's been great.
Jim,
nearly had me greeting there, Roy. You really did. It was, honestly, it's only whenever I listened. It was listening to you and listening to Ralphie and listening to other people like yourselves that I've said it before, that I fell in love with the community before I fell in love with whiskey, and I stick by that. And I've said it here that around the OSWAs, that I think that it's voted for, it's chosen and voted for us, or by us, for us, and it's only going to. I did say earlier on that there was a few things that I think got lost in translation in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But as you said, this won't work itself out until it's finished. And I think what's happening now is, whether we're contributors going forward, whether anybody listening's contributors going forward or whatever, that baton's getting passed on, that the understanding goes with it. And these awards are for us, and they will make more sense going forward. And it's just, I just think it's a great thing for us and for the whiskey community in general.
That's right. And that there is a wee bit of pressure. Ralphie and I are feeling it. We want to make Saturday as nice as we can make it. It doesn't need to be flashy. It doesn't need to be a top end, but it needs to be easy to consume, and it needs to be easy to understand and things. And the takeaways that people have, Ralphie and I have already got our idea of what those takeaways should be. But as we've processed the data and churned the numbers, they've morphed a little bit in a very positive way. And I think that we hope that the takeaways that happen after Saturday, if people don't wake up on Sunday morning and reflect on what we've done on Saturday and have the takeaways that we imagined, then we've failed in the messaging again, Jim. It's clear for us to understand. The difficulty now is for us to make it clear, what the takeaways are. And this is where I'm having to bite my tongue a wee bit and not let any spoilers out. I don't want to kind of, but we're close now. All that's left for me now is to make this thing look pretty, or make it look easy to watch on Saturday. That's what I've been working on this week. With your help, Ben, I've been able to do that so much better. I'm so grateful. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. However we deliver it, as long as the takeaways are delivered. That's kind of what we're focusing on now. So there you go. Oh, there's Menno saying it needs to be flashy and top end. Everybody's talking about black ties and kind of getting their bling on and things. But let me ask all three of you who are in tonight, how much of black tie and bling is appropriate in our environment, honestly?
Right? It's only a laugh, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of like, maybe, I half imagine that, Ralphie, I can imagine him maybe turning up in it with a wee bow tie on or something. I don't know, just to have a wee giggle or something. But it's kind of, yeah, go ahead.
You may well have a fireworks show outside. Crack the window.
Yeah, that's right. On the 6th of November. Well, that's tomorrow. We're going to have all of that. It's been happening tonight, but it's because it's later. It's quieting down. I'm sure you have it over there in Northern Ireland as well, Jim. Right?
What?
The fireworks.
Oh,
of course you don't. Of course you don't. It's a different date. You guys do, but you don't have it. See, there you go. That's how exhausted my brain is right now. How tired it is. Yes.
One last thing to close off the category 7. I am very surprised that there is no Japanese whiskey here.
Are you though?
I'm not.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Japanese whiskies have been the only other world whiskey that I've really engaged with. Well, I guess aside from the Balcones, I've struggled with the Welsh whiskey I've tried. the very limited. I've not tried Cotswolds, I've not tried Bimber, but English whiskey I've tried. So it's only really been Japanese for me, and my nomination probably would have been a Japanese if I had been included.
Well, the first thing I'll say is that, sorry, I should be giving Jim and Sheila some space here. The reason I'm going to force you to go out and buy a bottle of Cotswolds and get it down you is the exact same sentiment that I'll use to not recommend any Japanese for the same reason. Maybe with the exception of Suntory Toki, it's actually quite nice. It's the idea that you can do it. It's not a big consideration of a financial investment for Toki, but every other Japanese is super expensive and super limited in supply, and it's dropped off everyone's radar. If we say that we're at the jaggy edge, I think we're probably still 18 months away from embracing Japanese again. And that's just down to stocks catching up, so it's affordable. Because what we need to pay in order for it to compete with the other stuff we can buy from Scotland, England, Ireland, for example, and it's just too expensive still. And it often has that, when you sipped the Glasgow blend tonight from Compass Box, Ben, you talked about where the definition, the peaks and troughs had been flattened out a wee bit in order to bring something that was much more rounded and much more linear, all the while still good quality and interesting. But that's, Japanese whiskey is very much about that, isn't it? So much of it, even the single malts. So, and I think for us to go back there again, we're excited, but we're not going to pay the current prices for. Cotswolds are a brand new distillery making fantastic English malt whiskey at 40 quid. Jim, have you tried Cotswolds?
I have had a sample. I think it's very, very impressive that they're in there. I'm well pleased to see them in there. On the subject, I will always be a champion of Irish single pot stills, so it was great to see a couple of Redbreasts in there. I don't know that both of them needed to be in there. And Amrit Fusion, I also think is a class whiskey. So, I mean, I haven't tried the Balcones. I have had that Elijah Craig. But, you know, I just think it's very impressive that the Cotswolds have made it in there. That it's English whiskey is working its way up, and it's great to see. I agree with Ben. I'm a bit of, you know, Welsh whiskies. It'll be there. It will be there, but I haven't really been impressed yet. But yeah, it's a tough category. And,
well, any time I talk about brand new distilleries coming out, none of them are bringing out kind of 40% supermarket priced whiskies. It's always there's this fly in the ointment of Aberfalls, right? And it's their business. They can do the whiskey any way they want. And the feedback I get is that Aberfalls is pretty good. I can't comment. I've not tried it yet. But it's going to be interesting to see how they fare with that presentation, that 40% ABV, that 27 pounds price point versus the people who are bringing it fully natural, integrity, ABCDs, craft presentation, however you want to talk about it. Everyone else is doing that and focusing on that, kind of following a much more natural presentation. So it's going to be interesting to see whether you want to go the volume route, the mass market route, or you want to go the kind of, much kind of small batch, small scale craft route. It's going to be very interesting to see how Aberfalls fails. But I agree with you there. I think, Jim, you and I would have been secretly screaming for Powers 12, John's Lane, right? We both would have loved to have seen that single pot still Irish in there. It might be in the future, buddy. It might be. Yeah. A lot of comments actually were along the lines of 3 Compass Box in one category, 2 Wild Turkeys in another, 2 Redbreasts in another, Elijah Craig Pier. It's just, they were complaining that we need to limit it to 1. And I argue that if there's a category that we put up and one producer, one distillery gets all 6 nominations, it goes through. Because if I need to make it look not fixed, I need to fix it.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. So everything about this, warts and all, will be how it is. The numbers, the nominations, however it comes out, that's how it's going to come out. So yeah, whatever it is what it is what it is. So
it has to be. Sorry, you're right there, Roy. 100%. I just have to have him saying that.
Yeah.
If you if anybody stepped in and said no, you can only have 1 in that category, it looks fixed.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work.
If it looks fixed, sorry. Anybody who's got critical or legitimate complaints, and they're not just shouting and banging their keyboard, anybody that has just genuine curiosity, anybody that I can trust to come to my house, they can come to my house and I'll lift the hood and I'll let them look under the bonnet of they can look down to the nth degree, they can troll through all the data I've trolled through, and they can look at how legitimate this is. But it has to be through the lens of our community, the people who were bothered to step up and take the time to vote, all of those things, the type of things that they're involved in, the sliver of the community that we represent. However, the sliver of the community that we represent, or the sliver of the community that meant that you can't buy Springbank, we're responsible for that. Sorry, all of us are. We are at fault for us not being able to buy Springbank. We are also responsible for Macallan being one of the biggest world global luxury brands. I don't mean me, Roy Duff. I mean the whiskey geek, the connoisseur, the aficionado. The people who lifted up the glass in 1979 and said, if you know, you know, this is a Macallan single malt. It's going to make your eyes roll into the back of your head. And it did. And word caught on. People knew that. Now, there's lots of clever marketing and things that happened, famous stories about the marketing behind Macallan. Let's not deny that it happened, but way before that ever kicked in, way before that famous 1970s marketing campaign that they get £50 of a budget to put an ad next to the crossword puzzle in the Times, right? Way before that, Macallan was a success as a single malt because of word of mouth, because of the people in the know, because of the geek, if you want to. I'll use that word, Ben, and it's a good name for a channel. You should consider it one day. So we're doing that today. We're not speaking to everybody, but we're speaking to enough people that it's going to ripple out. And the distilleries that we talk about in OSWA's on Saturday may become the next Springbank that we can't buy. And people will complain that we did such a thing. And I'll say, no, we need to do such a thing. Because the more people that sell more than they can make, the more that will encourage people to follow that path. It just makes sense to me, and I know that it's laden with naivety and wishful thinking, but I think it makes sense to you too.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all right for us to say that while we're sat with a couple of 100 bottles over our shoulders.
Yeah,
yes. But for the average person, it'll be a little bit tough if they can't buy the whiskies we love.
Yeah, I mean the average person are not going to tune in on Saturday. It's going to be whiskey folk that tune in on Saturday.
Yeah.
And you know, it's going to end up with whiskey folk who ends up with the bottles on the shelves and things. But that's kind of what it's about. But it's important to us, and we can see in all the categories how important malt is to us. We can see in all the categories how hard we find it to leave our comfort zone of malt, specifically Scotch malt, oftentimes, honestly. So it's kind of going to hold up a mirror and look at all of those kind of dynamics. All of those fun things. I'm excited. I hope I don't make an arse of it. I bet have no audio when I go live on Saturday.
Oh, you'd have to be a real amateur to do that, Roy.
No, Ben, I do it regularly. Sheila called me on it as well. She said, Roy's been doing this for years and he still has audio. And absolutely, I do.
I was trying to make him not nervous. I wasn't trying to bash you.
No, but we all do.
Oh, yeah.
You go live and people are like, we can't hear you, dude. Like,
yeah.
Don't worry about it at all, Ben.
Okay. So the last category to finish things off is the big one, best single malt Scotch whiskey. And for this one, I'm going to open another bottle. I've opened some fantastic whiskey. I was just looking over my shoulder before. Opened some fantastic whiskey tonight, and I'm hoping this one follows suit. Now, this is one that Jim already has opened. So later on, or now, if you're ready, we might get his opinion on it as well.
Just get pulled.
I'm pouring a little Glen Victoriana. That's what I got going. I have some Laphroaig, but I'm going with my nominee.
Sheila. Do you know what I think we should try to do? We should try to hatch a plan, Sheila, in order to get you across to Europe so that you can have a lot more accessibility. Do you think such a thing could happen?
I think we can work it out.
I'm gonna have this. I've already uncorked this, but I hear from a lot of people that the reason I'm not gelling with this is that I need a bit more time with this open in order for it to come alive a bit more. It gets better when the open bottle, as most whiskies do, don't they? But Sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. We're talking about... oh, yes, I wanted to congratulate you, Ben, on your uncorking extravaganza tonight. It's quite incredible.
That's the reason. That's the reason that I was trying to clear off as many whiskies as I have been recently. It's because there's so much new stuff that I'm behind on that I need to get on the shelves because I'm desperate to open it. I'm desperate to try it. And it's just sat here. It's sat here going unappreciated, and it's wrong. So this is a fantastic...
I'll be back in 2.
Okay.
This is a fantastic train to use to actually go through and have a reason to open whiskies, particularly whiskies that our community enjoy. For them to have made it this far, they're whiskies that have merit.
It's a good excuse for sure.
What have you got in a glass, Sheila?
Glen Scotia Victoriana. This was my nominee for this category, so I thought I should,
Are you a fan?
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating that such a crunchy whiskey can be... it just shows you where we are going now. We've done the lovely and smooth and the rich and the tasty and the fruity. We're chasing interesting now, aren't we? Yep. We're looking for edges. We're looking for hooks. We're looking for corners. We're looking for places to go and focus in a glass of whiskey. And I think that's why Victoriana has suddenly been... so many people are paying attention to it, because it's got every glass of Victoriana I've poured, and I'm nearly out of... by the way, if you look, I don't know if you can see. No, not in this.
No.
This is not a new batch. It's a newer version, but it's the same ABV.
Almost gone.
Almost gone. Every single glass has tasted different to me.
Yeah.
It's not just the whiskey changing, it's environment and mood and all these things. And I've gone out and bought another one to replace it because I realised I was getting low and I don't want to miss out on that experience of that different glass of whiskey every time I pour it. It's fascinating. Is it the 54.2 you have?
I've gotten a lot of samples. I didn't write the ABV on this one. I don't think it was 54.2 though. I think it may have been a different one. It was from Matt at Whiskey Crusaders.
Matt Zetrick.
And then my other one I had was 54.2 though. That one's gone though.
So crunchy is a really interesting word to describe a whiskey.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Like
your first nose and sip, you know you're not going to just be able to sit back in a soft cushion in front of the TV and drink it. It's going to demand your attention. It's going to ask for your attention. You're going to need to work to go over this. You're going to be laughing and giggling at something on the TV, something your family said. You take a sip of the whiskey and you'll be tuned out of the environment that you're in, and you're in the glass. That's what Victoriana is.
Sounds 100% like the kind of whiskey I could get behind. And I found something quite similar in every Glen Scotia that I've tried. Like whether it's the double cask that on the face of it is puddingy and sweet and easy to get behind, but then suddenly I'm getting smoked salmon, and you can like, where's that come from? Where's all this savoury tone? And it's just it's flitting about and it's developing. And another thing that I was genuinely quite happy about is the fact that there is a no age statement in this category, because no age statements are constantly getting a bashing within our community. And I think they're a little harsh done by just being dismissed purely on the face of not having a number on the label.
Yeah.
Because no age statements are not always done cynically. They're frequently used by blenders, by distillers, to bring a whiskey with intentionally young whiskey in, because you get spirit forward, you get a kick of peat, you get something new, something different from younger whiskey than you do from old and heavily cask influenced whiskey. So I was quite happy to see a no age statement had made it into this category.
I was kind of nervous when I first put in my nomination for this. I was like, is this just going to be like the underdog that I shouldn't have put forward? You know, I was a little bit nervous, but and it is up against wonderful competition. But I still think it belongs in this kind of little panel. I voted for it again after I nominated it, so still good.
And let me just, so what Sheila has talked about there is that she was able to vote for her own nomination only because someone else had nominated the same thing.
Yeah, so I didn't
So
do
there was a thing,
yeah.
and Jim will be aware of this, Ben, that you asked 24 channels for 24 nominations, you're going to get 24 answers. So we compiled them, and we constructed a poll and put it back out to them in the form of a poll, and they could choose their top 3 from each of the up to 24 potential answers. And that naturally, organically meant that the top 6 would just float to the top. But they were asked not to vote for their own. You can't vote for your own, please. Yeah. Unless a peer has also voted for yours, in which case you'll see a duplicate and you can vote for one of them. Okay. So, that's been quite clear that that was how we organically arrived at this top 6 nominations. I don't know. I feel like it was a clever way to do it. I haven't seen the flaws yet, but there may be flaws appear. But that's also one of the reasons that we realized we've got 24 channels on this now. We need to leverage this. We need to do the best we can. How can we kind of crowdsource that and make it valuable, but still make it manageable and easy to administer, right? So 24 seemed to be what we felt could have been the sweet spot. Yeah. But that's how Sheila was able to then nominate her Glen Scotia Victoriana and vote for it as well. So at least two people put forward that whiskey from cold with no prompting at all. Yeah. And that's for a non-age statement. And I think you're right. It is a good thing to point out. I think the railing against the non-age statement has subsided a little bit, but I think that's down to the industry keeping the non-age statement cheap stuff to the supermarket shelves. They're not really pushing it. If you go to a tasting, like a Pernod Ricard tasting or something, you're not going to get Founders Reserve from Glenlivet put in front of you or something. They know that that's not going to be their market for that. Founders Reserve is for a supermarket shelf, or it's for somebody that kind of just wants a bottle of whiskey in the house. It's not anything against the quality of that whiskey, but the engagement is lacking for sure.
I'm smiling, sorry, Roy, because I was standing over a guy's shoulder in the supermarket today who picked up a bottle of Glenlivet's Reserve, Founders Reserve, and put it in his basket, and I nearly pushed him into the shelf. It was just one of those.
Well, what you can do there, you can let your evangelist run free and say, I noticed you like Glenlivet Founders Reserve. I've noticed this one here at the similar price, and we find a wee Tomatin Legacy or something that's going to...
Or just point to anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's quite fun about that Founders Reserve is that, I don't... It's difficult because you don't... We can all so easily slip into being snobs, right? But if you went to somebody's house visiting, or if you were out camping, if you're somewhere and you're sitting around the fireplace and you're thinking, I'm enjoying this beer, but I could really do with a dram, and somebody cracks open a bottle of Founders Reserve, I bet you would lap it up.
Yeah.
You would just, and we always have to remember, like the Highland Park 12 that's in the entry level. And by the way, your definition, your interpretation of entry level was spot on, guys. I enjoyed your conversation on that. It is not a cheap whiskey to get somebody into the category. No, this is the Scotch Whisky Enthusiasts Awards. This is the stuff that we have a soft spot for. This is the stuff that we love. It's what it represents. So core range, entry level whiskey, that kind of thing. Price being a huge factor. So, if you look at Highland Park there, a lot of people, maybe not this company here, I used to just go doughy-eyed at Highland Park 12. I really did back in the day, and you know what? Even now, it's and I feel bad saying it's a guilty pleasure. I shouldn't be saying it's a guilty pleasure. It remains a pleasure. Highland Park 12. I didn't nominate Highland Park 12, and I did not nominate vote for Highland Park 12. But I'm kind of a wee bit tickled and excited that it's there. It's nice for us not to be all megaphones and soapboxes and, the way I am in the vPub most weeks. It's nice for us to relax and remember, hey, it's just whiskey. And if somebody's sitting down with a glass of Highland Park 12 watching our content, and we tell them that their experience that they're having, that lovely, warm moment, is invalid in some way because they're drinking shit, then the problem is on our shoulders, not theirs. So I think it's always nice to just remember where we've come from, because Jim and I, it was a long time ago, but for Ben and Sheila, I'm sure it was very recently, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's nice that there's no age statement in the final category. I think it's nice that there's a 40%er in the opening category. I think it's almost like a little kind of a shield that we have there. This was not intended. These things naturally came about. What's really going to blow your socks off is the People's Choice. I mean, oh my God, people, they speak so loudly. They really do. My goodness.
We have Beam Suntory represented here, and we have Diageo represented here, which is in itself interesting to me, because they're both known for chill filtering. They're both known for colouring.
The only way Pernod Ricard got in was through Middleton. And that is a huge message.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single Scotch Pernod Ricard. We're talking about the second biggest Scotch malt producer, Pernod Ricard, and they don't even get a mention. The only way they get a mention is through their single pot still Irish.
Sorry, go for it, Jim.
I was just going to say that I think actually somebody mentioned earlier, and a whiskey that I'm actually not a fan of, and have said that I'm not a fan of, but is Arran 10, and the fact that Arran 10 got nominated in 2 categories there, and 2 very noticeable categories, is, to me, yet again, I said it earlier about the Wild Turkey, that's a winner already for Arran 10, in that it's not won anything at the moment, but the fact that it's got nominated twice, the same bottle, not just Arran, but the same bottle in 2 different categories, speaks volumes.
That's right. And it's and bookend categories, entry level and pick anything.
Yeah.
Literally pick anything. What I will say is that there are a couple of exceptions that fly against this, but we need to talk about what Ralphie and I were really after here. We were after quality. We were after availability. It had to be something that, you know, people could have a reasonable chance of getting a hold of wherever they may be. And I know it's difficult. It's really difficult. And it had to be about price. And those 3 things combined then gave us this sense of value, right? The value proposition of each of the bottles. So we've got something in there like Arran 10 or even Cutty Sark Prohibition down at the kind of very entry-level price points. But we've also got Redbreast 21 up there, and what, I don't know, Jim, it's about £190 or something now for a...
Easy, yeah.
Yeah, for a Redbreast 21. So, I mean, for somebody to nominate that and then see it nominated and then vote for it, that suggests that even at that price point, they have to find value. They have to find value. Oh my God, I know it's expensive, but it's just an amazing whiskey. So that's kind of what we've been forcing here. So you can really see that a lot of the categories were agnostic of price point, with the exception of the entry level. We kind of put a price guide in there to try and keep it entry level. But the rest of them were like, no, it's all about value. If you're getting quality, if you can buy it, and if you're getting it at a good price, then that's kind of what you want to be celebrating and you want to talk about. And that's came through. And I tell you what, the community have picked up on that as well. The community have, the message is loud and clear to them, because we didn't need to communicate it effectively. It's incidentally built into their every single site, that their every day, their buying decisions, everything. It's a major, it's the reason that they watch us. If they're going to buy a bottle of whiskey, they want somebody to reassure them that there's a good chance they're going to like it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, what do you think of this Laphroaig, Ben?
I am struggling with it a little bit, to be honest.
Good.
I've found straight off so it's a neck pour. Don't judge too harshly. There's no way that I'd take the the full impression of the whiskey from this, but there is too much sherry influence on the nose, and it's like it's claustrophobic. It's too rich for its own good. It's fighting itself. I'm finding the peat and the sherry are both tripping over each other. So it's very rare that I feel the need to add water to a whiskey, but I have added some water to this one to try and dial something out, to try and mellow it a bit. And what that's done, it's helped the sherry to subside quite a bit, the sherry influence, and brought out a very ashy, mulchy peat. And it's very typical of Laphroaig. It's kind of leaning more towards what I didn't like normally about the 10-year-old we can get here at 40%. But it has helped it to, I guess, get some definition from what it was on first pour. On the palate, interestingly, I found the peat kicked in, but then there was a wave of peanut brittle. And that was at the forefront with the sherry and the peat dancing around behind it, which actually helped me to kind of get my foot in the door and find something to appreciate in it. But without the water, it was a bit of a struggle on the neck pour.
I had the exact same issue with it. I felt like it was 2 chapters in a 2-chapter book. I think there was the sherry and there was the peaty spirit, and they were completely separate affairs in the first couple of glasses. That's not the case in the glass tonight. It's still not. It's still a bit sharper than I would like it to be. It's difficult for me to tell whether that's the spirit that's sharp or whether it's kind of that really active sherry element that you're talking about. There is still a sharpness here, but it's much nicer. Just put a couple of wee drops in it as you were talking there about adding water, so I'm going to leave it and see how it sits. But it's definitely getting better, and that's kind of the message that I'm getting with this. Also, the exact same message that I was getting with the Rassi release as well, that I struggled with a bit at the start. And that's, I was drinking that a wee bit earlier as you were talking about it tonight, and the exact same thing has happened there. It leads me to ask, neck pour, to my mind, is a real thing. And development of the open bottle is so real. And I don't care if they show us by science that it's not a thing, right?
I've got a bit of a bugbear with this, and I could rant on it for far too long. My dad is the biggest geek I know. He is a chemical engineer. He does maths for fun. He's crazy. Whiskey doesn't oxidize. It's done all of its oxidation in the cask. It's had years to sit in a cask and oxidize. So once it gets into a bottle, the oxidation that you see is negligible to basically non-existent. But what it does do is diffuse. And there's a different energy in the molecules between the liquid and the gas. And so the liquid basically vibrates into evaporate and escapes into the air. So every time you open the bottle, you're letting some of that evaporate escape. So the more air volume you have in your bottle, the more volume there is for this alcohol to escape. And then when you open it, some of that escapes. And so it's not a case of, it's oxidizing, you're losing electrons. It's losing some of the alcohol. And everyone knows, as you leave your glass on your desk and you let some of that open up and evaporate, it's changing character. Well, it's doing the same thing in the bottle.
Yep.
It's slowly opening up, and the concentration of the alcohol is decreasing. And you've got to bear in mind that you're talking about minute parts per million is what our brain, our body, our olfactory bulb is capable of perceiving. And so it's what it's picking up there is the tiniest of changes, but it's enough for our body to go, well, actually, that's not quite as cloying as it was. It's now mellowing out, and I can find some raisin or some berry in that. It's no longer too much for me to perceive as something I enjoy, to relate to a memory that I have once appreciated. So it just takes the tiniest change for it to kind of go, yeah, I like this now. And that's what it's about. It's not oxidation, but it is a chemical change. Sorry.
Hey, guys, could we listen to some more of this? Could we listen to some more of Ben Clarkson? What do you think?
Sucked in, completely sucked in.
Yeah.
Cheers, Ben.
Get your dad on.
I
wanted to, but that would be a whole nother level. That genuinely, when I talk to my dad, I feel like an idiot. I was talking to him about chill filtration at the weekend.
Fantastic. Jolly Rover's bought a wee dram for you, buddy. He's away, I
He's
think.
Jolly Rover. Like I say, genuinely very, very happy to be back involved in the community. Happy that life's gone in a way that facilitates this going again. I've had a full week in my new job, and I've been home before 6 every night, and I don't have to work at the weekend, and it's looking peachy so far.
Nice.
It's nice to have you back, buddy. It's nice to have you back. Listen, let's get everybody, including Sheila there, to nail our colours to the mast, and maybe just the last 2 categories there. Pick a winner.
Okay.
Clearly, I have to. I am in the luxurious position of getting to refrain.
Oh, and just real quick on 8, I've had Kilkerran 16 now, and I feel like it should be on this list because it's freaking wonderful. So,
and I would defend that by saying, the availability of Kilkerran 16, but then Long Row 18 is in there. So
yes, yeah.
But can I ask Sheila, was that an egg pour?
Oh, it was a sample. I didn't buy a bottle of it myself, but I was just like,
do you know if it was the 2021 or the 20?
Oh, hold on one sec. Actually, hold on.
2020 or 21.
I think they released it in. Oh no, it was 2020, wasn't it? The first 16 it was last year. Yeah.
Okay, it was from Bruno Martins. I can't hear you guys yet, but
for me, it takes
Bruno
a while to open up.
And it just says 46% in Kilkerran 16, so it doesn't actually say the year on it. But
I think it's more likely to be the newer one.
Probably.
Where 2020 for me really made me a maniac. I don't really scour secondary markets and things, but I've found with that one I was doing it because it's very mineralic. So if it's got a mineralic quality, a dry whiskey I'm drawn into. I think I heard you saying earlier, Ben, that you still enjoy sweeter whiskies, and drier whiskies maybe don't appeal quite as much. But the new Kilkerran 16 is still amazing.
That was me. But I like
Oh,
Kilkerran
sorry, it was
16.
Sheila, was it?
Yeah. And I think I will like Glencadam. It's just the very beginning of the bottle, and I do believe in what we were just talking about. So I think I just need to get to know it a little bit better. But I love Kilkerran 16, and I have a Deanston 18 that I love, and it's also way drier than the Deanston 12. So it just depends, I guess. I don't know.
Aye. Right, yeah. So we have to commit, don't we?
Okay.
So can you pull up a screen share, Ben?
Yeah, 1 second. There it is.
So that one's so hard because I feel like some people haven't had Cotswold, some people haven't had Balcones. It's such a mixed bag on number 7. Oh, we were supposed to do the last 2 categories, right?
Yeah, we'll just do the last 2 because of time, right?
Yeah.
It is the vPub.
Oops.
I mean, there's no rush at the vPub, but we are at 3 hours.
Yeah. So maybe I'm going to just go with
still 50 people
Balcones.
in.
It's probably going to be like Cotswold. It's probably going to be Cotswold, but I don't know.
But what does your gut? What would you like to win?
I would like Balcones to win, but I don't know if enough people have had it for it to be voted on enough. So.
Got you.
Same with Cotswold, though, I guess. So
Ben, give us your guess and your want.
Oh.
If I was to guess, I'd go Elijah Craig small batch. Sorry. My want would be the Balcones, but again, that's from not having tried most of them. But Balcones is one that I have tried, and I do believe it's fantastic whiskey and deserves a win, or deserves to be up there anyway.
Excellent, Jimmy.
My guess, well, mine for the win, and I'm just reading the comments here, and I knew that Menno and I thought alike, and we do. Amrit Fusion, I want to win, or I would guess would win. I would love to see Redbreast win, but I wouldn't actually pick the 21 or the 15.
You'd have picked the cast strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you, Jim Ingram. So what are we saying? Your guess is Amrit.
Yeah.
And your want then is
would out of those 2 Redbreasts to be the 21.
Okay. So okay, I am not going to guess on this category. I might have some insider information here. Let's see what you would guess for the number 8 then, Ben.
Ooh, guess.
That's so hard.
I
guess and want, yeah.
My guess would be between Longrow 18 and Glenallachie 10-year-old cask strength. I think my want would be for the Glen Scotia. I'm staring intently at your face, Roy, to see if you give anything away.
Not a chance. Not a chance. Do you know, this is one of the reasons I managed to get through last week's vPub, talking specifically about this topic, and I realised how tricky that was going to be, but I think I got away with it. So I'm really relieved that I wasn't having to do it again tonight, because any topic I would have been talking about, you could just kind of refer back to the OSWAs and kind of forget yourself. So it was probably a good idea to take this week off. Sheila, what's your guess and your want for the big category at the end?
Gosh, man, I don't know. So I want Glen Scotia Victoriana to win, but I think it might be like Arran 10. I don't know. Arran 10, maybe. It's nominated twice, so.
I think if nothing else, Arran 10 is probably going to be relatable to the most people.
Yeah. Not saying it's the best necessarily, but that a ton of people might vote for it. I don't know.
Well, after Jim has kind of given his guess and his want, I'm going to ask you another question quickly just on this 8th category. Okay. Jim, go ahead. Give me your guess and your want.
My guess... My guess is actually a hard one, because I don't think the Laphroaig will count into it. I don't actually think the Talisker will count into it. And I think the Glenallachie went a bit rare for it to count into it. So I think it's either going to be between the Arran and the Glen Scotia, but I want the Longrow to win, because that 18 is class.
So you're thinking your guess is Arran, but you would love the Longrow to win.
Yeah.
So let me ask you then, if this is almost like your whiskey of the year or something, right? If you weren't looking at this 6, if you could just pick one from the ether to win, Ben, what would it be? What would be the best single malt Scotch whiskey that represents our community in 2021?
Just any random one, like the best one we've ever had.
It's so hard, isn't it?
That would be I think it's a Hazelburn 9-year Barolo.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Okay, that was a special release, a 2017 release actually.
That was probably one of the best I've ever had.
The Barolo, wow.
Or the Longrow 14-year Sherry, that was good too. Those would be I don't know. Too many are going in my mind now.
You like dirty whiskeys, Sheila?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. You like sulphury, funky, heavy.
I love Springbank so much.
You and Sevy are going to get on very, very well together.
Good. Can't wait to meet him.
Jim, what do you think if you could pick anything?
I went into panic mode when you asked that question, and then I looked over my shoulder and reminded myself, Kilkerran heavily peated batch 2.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm making notes of this. Just waiting on Ben now. It's hard, isn't it, Ben?
It is.
I mean, I'll tell you mine. What I would really see wanting to be celebrated in category 8 is Anok 24.
Yeah.
£110, £120 for a 24-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey that you can pour for your granny and she'll love it and tell you it's smooth. And you pour for a whiskey geek and they'll give you tasting notes for the rest of the night.
I need to try it now.
Yeah.
I've had the knock. I think it was the 18, maybe. I don't know. Can't remember what year it was, but that was really good.
For me, the two that are coming to mind as, I guess, the most exciting whiskies that I've had. I think one of them was released prior to this year, so I don't know whether that counts, but that I've had this year were both Port Charlottes, the MRC 01 and the PAC 01. They were kind of next level on engagement and on depth. And one of the things that I loved about both of them was they started at 58%, and you just add a drop of water and it's different whiskey. Add a drop of water, different whiskey, and you can just keep etching away at it, and the engagement was there at every single level. But the fact that they've given you the opportunity to explore the whiskey in that manner as well was really good fun.
Yeah. It's like I said earlier, interesting whiskies.
Yeah.
These hooks. I mean, there's no bones about it. We are at the geeky end of the spectrum, and me trying to find whiskies that are people pleasers and really interesting whiskies, which is tricky. It's kind of me trying to be mindful of my journey as well. But you have to just give yourself up to the moment. Let's be honest, and just enjoy what you're enjoying at whatever point it is in time. Yeah.
Can we touch on something which Whiskey with Molly Ben has been trying desperately to get us to
I'm aware I've been relaxing tonight and ignoring the lounge. Oh, it's not my lounge.
So Glenallachie, it's come up in a couple of these categories, and deservedly so, I feel. The one thing that I have to say on it is it's kind of disappointing to me that we have to follow Billy Walker around on these distilleries, because he's done fantastic things and then handed the keys over and someone's come along and started meddling, and that's really saddening to me, because I look at Glenallachie and I go, we're on the upward trend now, but we're going to hit a peak. And what's to stop him from handing the keys over to someone else and ruining it again? And am I setting myself up for another fall for heartbreak here by going, oh, this is fantastic. This is something I can wholeheartedly get behind and really enjoy.
The thing to remember is that he's still working. Most of Glenallachie's great products that we're working on is old stock that Billy Walker is using. He's only there in the last 2 or 3 years. Not that I'm putting it down. Love Glenallachie, was there recently and was blown away in a virtual tour. But I mean, I agree with you, Ben, totally. It's old stock, which Billy's putting to good use. Interesting to see where it'll go.
Yeah, it's kind of like with Glendronach, built on the backs of enthusiasts, and I think same thing is happening with Glenallachie. I mean, clearly it's been nominated, built on the backs of enthusiasts, or maybe not built, but continuing to grow. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it lands. But
it's a distillery that I haven't explored as much as I'd like to, and every time that I've had the finances or I've felt the need, I've struggled to pick up the bottles that I've wanted to pick up. So I feel like I need to keep a little kitty in the bank for a couple of their next releases.
Yeah.
Now, the 10-year-old cask strength, because it's up in category 8, I have had a couple of samples of, and I've shared them. One time specifically, it sticks out in my head. I shared with someone who wasn't really, it's certainly not part of our community, but wasn't like fully in bed with Scotch with single malt or appreciating it as we do. And you could almost see, we had to tone it down. We had to add a couple of drops of water a few times, but you could kind of see there was something there. And he was, hang on a second, what's this all about? And the hook was getting there, and you could just see that the engagement was there, and it was the beginnings of something. So it's definitely a whiskey that I find exciting, and I need to have more on my shelves.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, the Glenallachie is not about the things we can buy. Glenallachie is about the things that we can buy, hopefully in the future. I have not bought a single Glenallachie and thought, I wish I hadn't owned. I wish I didn't buy that. They've all been. Sorry, I'm talking about Billy Walker Glenallachies here. I've enjoyed them all. I've got a few. I've got the 12. I've got the 10 cask strength. I've got the rye cask. I've got the 15. I've got a couple of single casks. The story of Glenallachie today is twofold. It's Billy Walker and casks. That's the story. And what he's been able to do is amazing, absolutely amazing. It is not compatible with keeping a distillery going in order to flavour blends. So that's why it was never done before Billy Walker got on board. He came in at Glenallachie for single malt's sake, but that was previously built to provide stock for blends. So fairly pedestrian malt, chasing efficiency, not a lot of cask management attention being paid. Just make it as good as you can make it given these constraints. That was what Glenallachie's story was. So often it produced fairly pedestrian whiskey. I think I don't have a huge experience with it before Billy Walker. A couple of indies. They did have an official bottling that was awful, genuinely awful. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I mean, not awful as in bad quality or anything, but just really boring. But now what we've got is this. I could pour for you a flight of 5 Glenallachies and you would taste 5 different experiences in the glass. But I challenge you to find a distillery character that runs through the 5 drinks. I think the story is so much about the cask just now, and that makes perfect sense. Billy Walker has shown what can be done. So see somebody that tells you it's all about the barley, somebody that tells you it's all about the fermentation and the yeast, somebody tells you that it's all about the distillation speed or the cut points, somebody that tells you it's all about the cask. They are all delivering you their own agenda because it's all of those things. If you only have control over the casks, you'll talk about the casks. If you only have control over the grain, you'll talk about the grain. If you only have control over the distillate, you'll talk about that. So it's all of these things coming together that surely makes the kind of best stab at whiskey, I think. I think the future for Glenallachie is amazing. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
And to some extent, it seems that presentation is paramount to all of those. Because if Billy Walker can inherit essentially stocks when he has no control over any of those parameters, and he can still put out whiskey like this.
Well, yeah, well, exactly. Well, its presentation is you actually have to take active steps to screw it up.
Yeah.
If you just put it out, it's going to be brilliant. But if you chill filter it, that's an active step. If you add color to it, that's an active step. If you add water to dilute it to 43 or 40%, these are active steps to ruin what you've built. I hate, you talked about Glengoyne very affectionately tonight, Ben, and it was like me. That's how I feel about Glengoyne, and it's so frustrating. It's kind of like fingernails down a chalkboard at Glengoyne, because I know what they can put out, because you get to taste Glengoyne from casks and teapot dram, and you get to go and do wee blending things, and you taste the liquid, and then you taste the 10 and the 12-year-old, and you think, well, this is lovely, but it's 60 or 70% of what you're actually making.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I don't like people talking about, oh, well, all the tasting notes you're giving me, Roy, are all cask tasting notes. And I think that I'm far more interested in the raw spirit and things. And it's just like, oh, Jesus. It's whatever it is that's making it interesting. It has to be it all. If we're going to make whiskey and going to put it in an oak cask, and in order for it to be whiskey, it has to be in an oak cask. To not talk about the cask or to ask for the cask to be neutral is nonsense. It's this serendipity, this history, this thing has brought all of these elements together at the same point in time for us to enjoy today. And us getting our geek on and pulling it apart and teasing it out and speaking like this is what makes it all fun.
Yeah.
It should never be talked about in the context of one is wrong and one is right. But Ben's right. If you take something that's good and you present it bad, that's a wrong. You have taken something that's been built and you've taken active steps to screw it up. That's the frustration.
I think looking at, as I said, I visited Glenallachie recently, and I think people like Billy Walker, Jim McEwan, they're legends in their own right, but they're not the be all and end all of a distillery they're taking what they've maybe like. Okay, Billy come in. He's done it before. He's doing it again with Glencadam, where he's come in and he's turned a distillery around. But you're still working with what that distillery was producing, and it's getting those people to work with you. It's a team. It's certainly I found it visiting Glencadam in particular that the team, the people, the way these people were speaking about this distillery, about their malt, and the way they felt about it. It was one distillery out of quite a few that I visited that stood out for me. The respect that they had for what they were making and the understanding of where they were going forward. And this was speaking to a distiller, a stillman, and he was something to do with marketing. The guy that just happened to be on the meeting with us because he was giving somebody a private tour. And he was open to telling us everything that was going to happen with Glencadam going forward. And it felt very much to me like something that was led originally by Billy Walker, but was being picked up by a team that knew exactly where they were going to drive it. And that it wasn't just going to be left behind by somebody. It wasn't just going to be a dynasty as such.
Yeah, Billy Walker, from the way I understand it, has an ability to make people appreciative that he's their boss. There's a sense of kind of enjoying working for Billy, right? All these warts and these bumps and everything. It's people love working for him, and for as many people that enjoy working for him, there are people in his wake that used to work for him that still are affectionate about their time working for Billy. That the way I understand it. This is anecdotal, absolutely anecdotal. And I think that what we see is that somebody who's anybody that you enjoy, that guy that you spoke to, Jim, a brand ambassador that you particularly connect with or love, somebody at a distillery, the thing that makes you hook with them is their passion about whiskey. They love whiskey, they're passionate about it. Unfortunately, the reality of it is that everybody that works in whiskey, it's a small percentage who are genuinely passionate about it. The real travesty is that a lot of people that have the ability to make significant decisions about it, not only are they not very passionate, but sometimes they're not that knowledgeable. Sometimes they don't even drink the stuff. And that's kind of what you're fighting against a lot of the time. The decisions that are being made in the background are by people who are making decisions based on projections and strategies and data points and spreadsheets and numbers and all of these fantastic things, because it's a business. Let's not try and dress it up. It's a business. However, when you meet somebody like Billy Walker, who's passionate, Ian McMillan, the reason that Bunnahabhain and Deanston is featured in the OSWAs is fully at his feet, and Billy Walker to an extent, and the rest of the team there that were involved in that transformation 20 years ago. The reason that they're there is because of that passion. Because you need to fight with people who will show you how many millions of pounds it's going to cost to implement your plan of action over the coming years, with no guarantee that it's going to succeed. So, we're dealing with all of these things, and it's, Ralphie and I have this idea that we can show the industry and things, but actually what we're going to be able to do is just all we can show the industry is what we're enjoying in the place that we occupy. But hopefully it's some information that they maybe don't have right now. They know what they're selling, but they don't know what's being loved. They don't. Yep. We're not going to a single channel, a single reviewer. We're not going to Ben at Whiskey Geek down there and getting his review on whiskies. We're going to over 3,000 unique individuals who have cast over 19,000 votes in this thing. And God knows how many. I didn't even count the People's Choice wildcards that came in. All I know is that I'll never sleep again because now I know how many different ways there are to spell Bruichladdich. How impossible it is to count them all.
That's great.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to raise this wee glass of Billy Walker's latest batch 6 10-year-old cast strength. And I have to say, given its ABV of 57.8%, it drinks much softer than that. It's very rich in here. I don't know what the cask makeup is of this, but there is a significant amount of PX of that, I'm certain. And it's just a rich, decadent peach of a thing. Am I going to hold the glass up and say, oh, yes, there's not enough of the distillery character in this? I would be a pretentious arse if I did that. Because this is, regardless of that being a valid note to take, this is wonderful whiskey. Wonderful whiskey. Has anybody got this, the batch 6?
Afraid not, unfortunately.
I'd like to see them all stacked up on a shelf together, because I predict they've been getting darker and darker as the years have gone by, right? Because he's put these things in much, much more active, much more better quality casks.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much, Ben.
Cheers.
Yes, cheers.
So
did I inadvertently wind this up? We are now a record-breaking 3:34, Ben Clarkson.
Well, to be fair, I had tuned out and I was just listening to another vPub by Roy, to be honest. So yeah, thank you very much, Jim and Shayla. Thank you for joining and for helping me not to botch this quite as badly as I could have done. I've had great fun, and thank you all 42 of you who are still here at whatever ridiculous time in the morning it is. I have quite urgently got to get into bed because I've got to get up early and drive to the other side of the country tomorrow, which could be fun. So thank you again, and I hope
you enjoyed it, Ben. I hope you enjoyed it, buddy. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely have.
Yeah, thanks for hosting. It was so nice to meet you guys.
Yes, you guys. Thank you for having us again.
Yeah. Slanjava.
Slanjava.
Cheers.